Chapter 487. Yasmin Winston. The next day Michael was meditating atop the tallest mountain peak in the entire sunrise sect. The sun bloomed on the horizon, golden petals of sun rays stretching ever outwards into the rich blue. Slowly opening his eyes, Michael breathed in the fresh morning air and listened to the birds chirping around him. He willed the system, retrieving the 2 black swords from the system storage. The swords were reflecting the golden sun rays. Looking at the smooth surface, one could tell they were damn sharp. Still, Michael increased their sharpness by rubbing the blades against the sharpening stone bought from the system store. "My lord, if I may, can I suggest you something?" Azazel appeared next to Michael. "Go ahead. You should finish the coronation ceremony soon. Your people need to see their king." Azazel was right, as he had never visited Bradford since he became the king. Claire and the elders handled everything. Michael wasn't interested in being king. Nonetheless, he could at least visit the kingdom and his castle. Moreover, he needed to meet his army and commander. "I will meet them." Michael stood up and put on his black full-sleeves shirt and the long black coat. "But first, I have an engagement party to attend." Michael threw the swords in the air, and they landed straight into the sheath on his back, forming an X. Michael prepared to leave the mountain when he saw Ricky flying toward him. Azazel's figure quickly vanished into thin air before Ricky could notice him. "Master Ghost, your carriage is ready." As soon as Ricky landed before him, he bowed and informed Michael. "No need for a carriage." Beads of sweat broke out on Ricky's forehead. Noticing Michael's current attire, something told Ricky that Ghost wasn't planning to give his blessing to the princess. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in his battle attire. "Have you ever fought a real battle, Ricky?" Michael asked, adjusting his tactical fingerless gloves. These gloves helped him grab the swords tighter, thus increasing his sword mastery by a percentage. Michael planned to transform the mountaintop into his personal training area. Only he was too busy to draw the blueprints for all the training pieces of equipment he needed forging. For now, he just swung his arms in a circle a couple of times and cracked his neck and knuckles before approaching Ricky. "Only one time, Master Ghost," Ricky answered Michael's question. "Tell me about it." Michael put his arm around Ricky's shoulder and asked, "The latest authorities are of website." "Well, one time when Daniel and I were guarding the gates, a group of hunters came to us chased by a gigantic brown bear." "Did you kill it?" Ricky embarrassedly scratched the back of his neck. "No, it ran away." "But not before giving me this." Ricky pulled down his shirt collar a bit to show Michael the deep scar running across his collarbone. "Let me rephrase my question. Have you ever fought a human?" Ricky shook his head. "Thought so while talking." They arrived at the edge of the mountain. The very next moment, Michael turned around to fall down. "Hoo-hoo!" Michael shouted like a little kid free-falling. Kingdom Bredia was in a festive mood. One could feel happiness in even the darkest corners of the kingdom. King Bredia announced free food, 20 gold coins for each family, and more importantly, a permanent tax reduction by 2% to celebrate his daughter's engagement to Andrews Winston. The people flooded the surrounding castle. They all eagerly waited for the princess and the prince to appear. The vibrancy of the celebration, the energy of the dancing dragons, and the fireworks that make an artistic canvas of the morning sky were enjoyed by all. The citizens showed their joy by painting their faces, carrying banners, offering food to fellow citizens, and shouting slogans appreciating the king and the princess. The castle of Bredia had 4 solid, round towers towering above all and linked with small bridges. The castle walls were made of light gray stone. The engineers who built the castle placed refined windows thinly around the walls in seemingly perfect symmetry, along with symmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. The real beauty came from the surrounding garden and the crystal blue stream running around the castle. The wooden bridge was raised to prevent the citizens from flooding the castle. Only after the engagement would King Bredia lower the bride, so the people could enter the castle grounds to see their princess and prince. Since the streets leading to the castle were flooded with cheerful citizens, the nobles and the guests entered the palace through the roof and landed directly in the throne hall. Humble braziers decorated the throne hall, hanging from one side of each of the 8 limestone columns that lit up most of the throne hall and radiated warmth across this hall, along with the majestic chandeliers. The illustrations of a kingdom in the sky on the terraced ceiling danced in the flickering light while carved images and statuettes looked down upon the maple floor of this opulent hall. The nobles were standing on the floor blanketed with a coral rug that ran down from the throne and split to encircle the entire hall, while matching banners with emblazoned crowns decorated the walls. Between each banner sat a shrine-like ornament covered in candles. A few of them have been lit and, in turn, illuminated the artistic portrayals of Princess Catherine and Andrews Winston below them. The draperies colored the same coral as the banners hid the windows, while burnished corners and fancy tassels adorned the curtains. A glorious throne of oak sat atop a tall, elevated platform, and 5 somewhat plain-looking seats for the Royal Highness family members accompanied the throne. Visit. For the best-known the experience. His Majesty really outdone himself this time. The place looks gorgeous. Where did His Majesty buy the wine? It's delicious. I heard His Majesty even invited someone close to Empress era. You kidding me? No. I thought only the kings and queens in Elon continent would attend the ceremony. I don't think King Maxim or King Ports will come, the nobles gossiped while slow dancing to the music played by the orchestra group. Thanks to the soldiers constantly patrolling and monitoring the castle grounds, everything was going smoothly. You're late at the moment. A lady adorned in a sparkling golden dress entered the castle with a couple of men. The lady who arrived at the castle was Imelda, and the one who welcomed her was Natalia, Andrew's mother. Where is everyone? Natalia asked, fiddling with her golden hair nervously. Ethan is still at the battlegrounds. Diana said she will be here tomorrow morning, Imelda said. What about the kids? Where are they? Sabi is still in seclusion, I guess. We received a note from Rowena and Noah. They'll be here with Diana. Natalia heaved a sigh of relief, but when she thought about Sabrina, her smile grew shorter. Can't Sabi just take a break and come here? Imelda shook her head. You know about Sabi. She is working so hard to break through to the core formation stage. She won't miss the marriage. I guarantee you. Imelda knew how much Natalia loved Sabrina. She was the youngest child in the family, so every single one of them loved her dearly. As a result, Natalia was crushed when she heard Sabrina wouldn't come to the ceremony. Visit. For a better user experience, however, what she heard next cheered her up instantly. Do you know who's coming today? Yasmin. Natalia's face immediately brightened as though someone was directing a torch light to her. Really? Natalia almost bounced in joy. She was so excited. Yes. In fact, she is on her way here, Imelda brightly grinned. Yasmin Winston was Ethan's nephew. Several years ago, she went to AR to hone her skills. There wasn't a sect that didn't invite her to join them, but she rejected them all because she believed getting real experience was more crucial than learning in a sect. Yasmin was the pride of Ethan's younger brother Caden. After what Jacoby did, Caden couldn't look Ethan in his eyes. He was ashamed of his son's plot to assassinate Sabrina and Diana. If Yasmin was there, she would have personally cleaved her brother's head clean off. How can I miss this special day, Auntie? Natalia heard a charming voice as she looked up to see Yasmin gracefully descending from the sky. The girl wore armor set with a rounded helm and a face guard. Attached to the forehead area was a crafted leather ornament piece shaped like a lion's mouth. The shoulders were oval, short, and quite large, decorated with 3 large, curved wooden spikes on each side, lined up from back to front. She removed her helmet to reveal her perfectly sculpted face and her porcelain skin. Every single youngster in the hall turned their gaze to the black-haired girl in battle armor. She wasn't by any means a country-toppling beauty. However, the grace and the aura she radiated rivaled even the most powerful people in Elon. What particularly caught everyone's attention was her armor, which was made of many vertical layers of leather and metal mimicking a dragon's scales. One could not find a single place in her body that wasn't covered by the armor. Yasmin, the 2 ladies dashed at her, and when her feet touched the floor, they hugged her tight. I missed you 2 so much. Yasmin hugged them back. Too tight, Imelda patted Yasmin's back, barely letting her know her embrace was crushing them. Sorry. Yasmin quickly let them go. She had to slap herself on the face for forgetting how strong she was and how fragile her aunties were. Where are my cousins? Don't tell me they aren't planning a homecoming party for me. Brat, couldn't you have taken off your armor? Is this what you learned from the elves? Imelda playfully twisted Yasmin's ear. Yeah, they've been teaching me so much noble etiquette, Yasmin sarcastically said. The latest episodes are on the website. Bring me to see my soon-to-be prince aunties. Yasmin put one hand around Natalia's neck and the other around Imelda's neck. She didn't give a damn about what the others would think, nor did Natalia and Imelda. As they spoke, Ghost was on his way to giving the couple a gift that no one would forget for years to come. Chapter 488, Instilling the Fear of God in Hearts. Ding. 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 A man in a white coat suit clanked his wine glass with a silver spoon as the chit-chatter immediately calmed down. Following their silence, Yasmin turned her gaze towards the dashing couple walking down the stairs with King Bredia. Who could be so dashing other than the Prince and Princess of Bredia? It was Andrew Winston and Catherine Bredia. Andrew was rocking the suit and looked extremely handsome. He wore a clean shirt and buttoned it up fully to support the bow tie. On top of the shirt, he wore a chic vest with 6 buttons. It had a deep V-line, which caused the vest to line up perfectly with the jacket's V-line. The jacket fitted him like a glove, a tailored glove. It had an intricate rope strike pattern, making it look stylish and graceful. The buttons of his double-breasted jacket were all buttoned up, with the exception of one for playful touch to a classy look. He was wearing pants that copied the style of the jacket, both in color and pattern, and made an ideal combination with his brogue Oxford shoes. To top it all off, he wore a refined belt accompanied by a tie clip and cufflinks. Besides Andrew's, Catherine looked like a goddess among mortals. The sparkling dress covered her shoulders halfway, flowing into an elegant jewel neckline. It was a close fit, giving the dress a relaxed yet graceful look, whereas her arms were uncovered entirely. This was a good thing, as her silky skin wasn't something that should be covered up. The dress waist was thin, but it was a comfortable fit. A bow had been wrapped around Catherine's and rested gently on her lower back. Below the waist, the dress fitted snug around her and had a straight style. The dress reached just above her ankles and was slightly longer at the sides. She was wearing T-straps, which went hand in hand with the dress. To top it all off, she wore an ornate necklace and large jeweled earrings. The couple drew all the attention while the king stood aside with a bright face. At that moment, he felt like the happiest man in the whole world. His little girl had grown and would be a lady soon. Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness, Your Royal Highness, the nobles bowed respectfully. Soon after, Andrews noticed Yasmin among the crowd alongside his mother and auntie. For a moment, he couldn't believe his eyes. Seeing the look on Andrews' face, Catherine led him to his family. Yasmin. Andrews grinned ear to ear. Visit. For a better user experience, hello Prince. Come here. Yasmin embraced him in a tight hug. Catherine, this is my cousin. Yasmin. Andrews introduced Yasmin to Catherine. How should I address you? Princess, Your Royal Highness? Catherine or Kathy. Princess smiled brightly and hugged Yasmin. Soon the two girls began to talk, and Yasmin's adventures immediately hooked Catherine. The gala was lively. Everyone danced, drank, and exchanged pleasantries until a soldier came running to the king. Your Majesty, said the soldier, breathing heavily with a pale face. He looked as though he had seen a ghost. Since the king was talking to Natalia and Imelda, he stood closer to the Winstons. Thus, the Winstons, including Yasmin, halted her stories and turned her gaze to the soldier. What? The king was annoyed by the soldier, so he specifically asked his men not to disturb him for 3 days. For a few moments, the soldier looked reluctant. Then he stepped forward, leaning towards the king. Yasmin and everyone saw the soldier whisper something to King Bredia. As soon as the soldier finished whispering, King Bredia lost all the color on his face. Seeing the sudden change in Bredia's face, Catherine lost her bright smile. Father, what happened? She asked with a weakened voice. Nothing. King Bredia showed the fakest smile there was, but, to be honest, his mind went blank. Then, slowly realizing the consequences of what he had done on impulse and anger was on its way, he shivered. Carry on, Kathy. They'll be back. Thud. Just as the king was about to step forward, a soldier fell from the rooftop. H. A noble lady screamed, looking at the lifeless eyes of the soldier staring at her. The orchestra players stopped playing. As a result, the lively gala became silent. Thud. A few seconds later, another soldier hit the ground, just a few inches away from the previous one. Thud. Then another one. Thud. Visit. For a better user experience, another one. Thud. One after another, soldiers rained down from the roof entrance, horrifying everyone. Yasmin's battle instincts kicked in as she stepped in front of Catherine and her aunties, shielding them with her body. Blood was coming out of the fallen soldiers, and soon, they were lying in a pool of their own blood. Where are the royal guardians? Yasmin kept calm despite the situation, unlike the rest in the hall. They are the royal guards, Andrews stuttered. After what happened in the tournament, King Bredia and the Winston family spent a large portion of resources to strengthen the royal guards. In addition, they also hired a few level 10 core strengthening stage warriors to guard the king and princess all the time. They hired a soul refining stage mage to oversee the royal guards. The dead bodies of the soldiers rained down in the hall until they formed a mound of bodies. How strong were they? Yasmin asked in a relatively quieter voice. Core strengthening stage level 10. Yasmin creased her brows, hearing Andrews. She was at core strengthening stage 6, thanks to all the potions and pills the elves gave her. To be honest, Yasmin could fight a few level 10 core strengthening royal guards simultaneously and triumph over them easily. However, she knew it would be challenging to kill 20 of them. Thus, it was evident to her that whoever or whatever killed them was far stronger than the royal guards or a group that killed them. Looking closer at the bodies, she noticed a greenness in their skin. They were poisoned, Yasmin mumbled under her breath. As soon as she realized, they all saw a black-robed youngster descending through the roof entry. Immediately, a crossbow materialized in Yasmin's hands as she aimed the bolt at the young man. Except for Yasmin, the Winstons recognized the young man. Master Ghost sent his regards, King Bredia. The young man snickered at King Bredia. The moment King Bredia and Keathern heard the name Ghost, they shuddered. Overwhelming fear and shock clutched their hearts. You killed them? Andrews lost his patience as he stomped the ground. He was trembling in anger. Today was a special day in his life. He never wanted anyone or anything to ruin it. Everyone in the hall was looking at Ricky. Even though the royal guards were no more, the soldiers garrisoned in the capital stormed the hall through the roof entrance, surrounding Ricky and King Bredia. How's my engagement gift, King Bredia? Another calm voice echoed through the hall. They saw Ricky smirking. The first one to turn around was King Bredia. As soon as he turned around, yet again he was startled. One by one, everyone in the hall turned around to see someone else sitting on King Bredia's throne. Visit. For a better user experience Ghost. Yasmin heard several gasps resounding in the hall. She saw Andrews stepping back subconsciously, and his face immediately became pale while his body trembled. On the other hand, sweat beads broke out on King Bredia's face. Even the soldiers were not an exception as they all looked like King Bredia, sweating and pale. Who is he? Was the question that immediately rose in her head. Yasmin noticed he was sitting on the throne leisurely while blood trickled down through the black swords in his hands. Yasmin had never seen him in her life. He dressed in completely black, just as handsome as Noah, but unlike Noah, he looked colder. None of them knew how or when he entered the hall. Everyone was too terrified to notice what was under his feet. Yasmin was one of the few who noticed and recognized it. Sergio. King Bredia uttered a name breaking the silence. That was his name, huh? The next moment, he kicked the black object under his feet. It rolled towards King Bredia and hit the king's feet with a sickening thud. A-H. Immediately, Catherine let out a short squeal as the object was ahead, head of their personnel guard, Sergio. While everyone was terrified, he raised his sword at the orchestra. Play something cheery. The blood splattered on the instruments, giving the orchestra team chills through their spines. "What did I tell you, Bredia?" asked Michael. He didn't bother hiding the killing intent in his voice. Bredia would have been dead several times if a stare could kill one. "What you?" Bredia stuttered. Despite having numerous soldiers around him, he didn't feel safe at all because he knew Ghost could massacre everyone in the hall. The orchestra team played something cheery dosed with a darker tone, giving the scene a cinematic charm. "What you? Cat got your tongue." Michael mocked Bredia as he stood up from the throne. "Why are you doing this?" Tears rolled out of Catherine's eyes. "Ghost, this is too much. Being strong doesn't give you the right to bully the weak," Andrews coldly said. "Tell that to your father-in-law." Andrews was stunned by his answer, and when he turned to look at Bredia, he saw the king opening and closing his mouth, struggling to find the right words. "They don't know, do they? I don't care what happened between you. You are not ruining this event." Yasmin stepped forward, surprising Michael and the Winstons. "Yasmin." Imelda tried to pull Yasmin back, but she simply couldn't. Another girl prodigy of Winston's, typical, Michael thought. Visit. For the best no underserving experience, they expected the Guardians to intervene somehow. However, the Guardians were busy trying to save themselves from the PR nightmare Michael threw at them. "Yasmin, please, stay down. I beg you," Imelda begged Yasmin. She knew what Ghost was capable of, what he was really capable of. They had no one to stop him if he decided to kill them. Michael knew this too. That was why he chose today instead of the actual ceremony date, as the prominent guests would arrive only tomorrow. At that time, someone might be strong enough to battle Michael. For instance, Rowena or Noah. But today, there was no one to stop him. Chapter 489 Final warning to King Bredia. Michael could see Yasmin's cultivation level. Although she would be considered a heaven-defying prodigy just like the rest of her family, she was still far weaker than Michael. Thus, he didn't mind her. Lightning dash. Michael cast the spell. The next moment, Yasmin saw a bolt of lightning streaking past her. "Father!" When Catherine screamed, they all realized King Bredia had disappeared from where he was standing. Bomb! Michael slammed King Bredia against the throne by his neck. "Father! Your Majesty!" The soldiers and King Bredia's family shouted as they rushed forward to save him. Yasmin was the first to fire a crossbow bolt at Michael. Whoosh! The bolt soared through the air like a bullet, only to be caught by Michael easily. Yasmin was startled by his reflex. Just as she was about to knock another bolt in her crossbow, Ring of Fire. Michael cast another spell as a scorching hot flame surrounded them. RRRJH. A few soldiers stood closer to the Ring of Fire, leaped back, screaming in agony. "No!" Catherine screamed, seeing Ghost slamming her father against the throne like a rag doll. "Don't hurt him!" She tried to run into the fire, but Andrews held her back by her waist. Still, she squirmed and jerked to reach her father. Looking at Catherine crying, Yasmin closed her eyes, raising her arms. Immediately everyone heard a howling sound of the wind. Everything in the hall trembled. Yasmin wasn't playing. She directly went for the strongest spell in her arsenal. However, she was stopped by Michael, 3 inches. She abruptly opened her eyes when she heard him. "Make sure the spell could reach me before I lower my sword 3 inches. "What 3 inches? Everyone wondered after hearing his words. But they soon got their answer when Michael stabbed King Bredia in the chest. He thrust the sword slowly so King Bredia would feel every bit of pain. Arg! King Bredia growled as blood trickled down from the wound, making his white shirt worn beneath the fur coat red. "No!" Catherine's scream echoed through the halls. Visit. For the best known the experience, Ghost stop. Imelda couldn't see Ghost torture the poor girl anymore. She stepped forward, shivering in anger. "Your men arrested a man when he crossed the border after selling his family heirloom." Completely ignoring Imelda, Michael spoke to Bredia. He amplified his voice with arch energy, so everyone heard him loud and clear. "Do you know what happened to the man?" King Bredia kept growling instead of answering Michael. Bang! Michael punched Bredia so hard that King Bredia coughed up blood and his wisdom tooth. "He was beaten to death by your soldiers in prison." "Why? Because you ordered your men to raise the taxes and harass river town citizens. Yasmin frowned. She had already stopped casting the spell. But now, she began to see the other side of things. What did I tell you? Bang! He punched King Bredia again. What did I fucking tell you? While Michael was threatening Bredia, the soldiers tried using water to put out the fire ring. But unfortunately, although the fire was crimson red, it was dosed with dark flames. Hence, they couldn't put out the fire no matter how much water they poured. I told you to stay the fuck out of my way, didn't I? Michael stabbed Bredia's legs, nailing him to the throne. Father! Catherine kept screaming, but Michael gave no damn about her. Considering Ricky had done his job, he left the throne hall through the roof entry before someone could hold him hostage. Did you stay out of my way? No. You told the merchants to stop visiting Bradford. Bang! Michael grabbed King Bredia by his collar and punched him. You ordered your soldiers to harass my people. King Bredia received another punch to his jaw. You caused my people their jobs, their livelihood, and their safety. Michael headbutt Bredia as the king's nose broke, producing a sicking crunching sound. Visit. For the best known serenity experience. Does that sound like staying the fuck out of my way? The mages already rushed into the throne hall. Cast a spell if you want your majesty's head off of his shoulder. After hearing his cold words, the mages didn't dare to cast a spell, so all they could do was stand there and watch ghosts torture their king. Stop! Please stop! Andrews and Catherine shouted at him only to be ignored by Michael again. After hearing what he said, Yasmin learned that King Bredia was not wholly blameless. Although she hated seeing her cousin and newly made friend crying, she saw no way of saving King Bredia. She had a feeling that if he wanted to kill Bredia, he would have done it by now. But instead, he was setting an example. He proved to everyone that he could kill even the king if they messed with him. Moreover, he was removing hundreds of potential enemies by torturing King Bredia on his own throne. What he was doing was a show of ultimate dominance. Does that sound like staying the fuck out of my way? He banged Bredia's head on the throne every time he uttered a word. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 500 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,500 badass points. The badass points rapidly increased with the system ringing in his head. Michael ignored the notification sounds and focused on venting his anger on Bredia, who caused him millions of gold coins. All for what? Silly revenge. I am pregnant, Catherine shouted as loud as she could. The moment Michael heard her, he stopped banging King Bredia's head against the throne. Kathy. Andrew and everyone turned their gazes towards Catherine, who dropped to her knees. If you let him live, I swear on my child we won't bother you ever again. Catherine held her tummy and begged Michael. Tears gushed out of her eyes as she spoke. Now you made me look like a monster. Michael snarled at the king. That child just saved you from a whole lot of agony. Old man Michael pulled out the sword from Bredia's chest. As soon as he did that, hot blood came pumping out of the wound. You know, if I wanted to end you, I want raise an army, wage a war, sit in a tent, and hope my side wins. I wouldn't do that. Nothing can stop me no matter where you are or how protected you are. If I want you dead, you'll be dead. As simple as that. Those who heard his words agreed with him. He just appeared out of nowhere, killed the royal guards without raising any alarm, and tortured the king on his throne. They knew if he wanted, he could have killed Bredia several times and no one could have stopped him. The latest _AP_SODIES are on _website. Consider this your final warning. I am giving you a week. Everything you did, undo them. Andrew sighed as he hugged Catherine tight. If you try to do anything funny, just know many children die in the womb along with their mother, King Bredia. Michael whispered to Bredia before pulling out the second sword from his leg. Gradually the fire died down, but the fear in their hearts wasn't. Every single one of them feared Ghost more than they ever did. No one heard what he said lastly to King Bredia. But Yasmin noticed Bridia's change on his bloody face. She could tell whatever Ghost told him made King Bridia terrified. The nobles immediately stepped back and made way for Ghost. They didn't dare to stand in his way. "How do you sleep at night?" Yasmin coldly said. "Like a baby." He just smiled at Yasmin before ascending towards the roof entryway. Then, he disappeared from the throne hall, leaving a trail of golden light. The next day, the entire Elon continent was in chaos. Olivia was walking down the streets of Rivertown to have her breakfast at Hades when she saw the people murmuring among themselves, looking terrified. Surprisingly, there was a long line of paper boys in the streets. In other kingdoms, orphans and poor children worked for newspaper prints for slave wages. However, they were paid good coins in Bradford to fill their belly and their families. Claire was kind enough to admit all the orphans and the poor into the sect and offer them free cultivation. Because of her act of kindness, Bradford became the first kingdom to have 0 street urchins. Since Michael himself was an orphan, he donated a portion of his income to the well-being of the orphans. But only Claire knew about his donation. New race has been discovered. Vampires or bloodsuckers. Get a copy of the Royal News for 1 gold coin. Guardian Captain Peyton apprehended the first vampire. Scandalous Guardian Guild. What else are they trying to hide from the people? The Holy Church condemns the Guardian Guild. King Ghost versus King Bridia. Princess Catherine is pregnant. The young boys and girls were shouting at the people walking on the streets. "Give me a copy." Olivia approached a brown-haired girl who was standing on a stack of crates and holding out a newspaper. "Lady Olivia." The young girl greeted Olivia with a wide grin. Olivia was surprised to see the girl addressing her by her name. Olivia took out a gold coin and reached it out to the girl. "It's free for you, Lady Olivia." "Enjoy the news." The girl handed over the newspaper to Olivia but shook her head, refusing to take the coin. "Then take this as a tip." The young girl didn't refuse as she took the coin from her hand with an ear-to-ear grin. Olivia wasn't a stranger to the freebies and special treatment she enjoyed in Bradford. Wherever she went, someone always tried to curry favor with her so they could get close to Ghost. Her status as Ghost's disciple overshadowed her position as the teacher at Aragoth. "You're so kind, my lady." The girl bowed. Yeah? Olivia chuckled and walked towards Hades, so she could read the newspaper in peace while having a delicious breakfast. Considering she had to leave for Azare tonight for the alchemist competition, she wanted to enjoy Raylene's delicious cooking one last time before leaving with her teacher. Ghost. Visit. For the best no_vel_ng experience. Chapter 490. Arriving at the Azare continent in the calm sea. A 2-mast ship was sailing under the light of a starry sky with a full moon. Currently, a young man and a young girl leaned on the edge enjoying the peace and quiet. They were none other than Michael and Olivia, who were on their way to the Azare continent. "Take these. It'll help you store less stable potions, and the potions you keep inside won't deteriorate." With a flick of his wrist, Michael took a crate containing 50 newt vials from his space ring. Olivia was pleasantly surprised by the sudden gift. "Are these the newt vials you told me about?" she asked excitedly with wide eyes that sparkled looking at the vials. "Yep. Thank you so much, teacher. I didn't quite expect this." The vials brightened her face more than the moon and the stars in the sky did. She held the crate close to her chest. "Thank me by winning this silly competition." As soon as he said that, the smile disappeared from her face. "It's not silly," she pouted, looking as though she was offended by his words. "Relax. I'm just messing with you." Michael pinched her nose playfully. Soon, she stopped pouting and giggled. "I'm not competing. My students are. I told you about this, didn't I?" "I don't think so." "Whatever. Tell me again." Olivia sighed. "Well, it's simple actually. 2 parts, individual competition and group competition. Each has 3 rounds. First round, participants are given 2 batches of ingredients and asked to concoct a pill using the ingredients. If they fail 2 times, they will be eliminated. It's the judge's task to find whether that pill is an actual pill or just a lump of essence. Sounds simple enough. The second round is a little bit tricky. The participants need to refine a pill or a potion according to the formula they are given. I assume. You've yet to reveal the tricky part. Visit. For a better user experience, Olivia nodded. The given formula will not be entirely correct. The participants have to find the mistake and correct the formula to succeed. Yet again, sounds simple. For you, teacher. For you. She playfully punched Michael on the shoulder and continued to explain about the competition. The third and final round is kind of freestyle. The participants need to bring their own formula and ingredients to refine the best pill or potion they can. The best with a high purity level wins the competition. As simple as that. Do you want me to give you a super awesome formula? Michael asked. At first, she thought he was joking but looked at his rather serious face. She learned she was wrong. Teacher, are you serious? Yep, however. Olivia immediately shook her head. I want my students to win or lose on their own. Getting the formula from you is a cheat and I don't want to cheat. Michael never thought he would ever feel proud as a teacher. But now he did when he heard Olivia. He wouldn't have thought less of her if she had taken his formula. Instead, however, by rejecting the formula, she made him proud. Now tell me again, why are we sailing instead of flying or using the portal in your sect? Because you need some bonding with the nature, teacher. Sometimes you just outright scare me. Michael was surprised by her words. Scare you? What did I do? Asked Michael. She quickly put the newt vials in her space ring in case he changed his mind and took them back. Then, she placed her hands on her hips and talked like a strict mother. You literally tortured King Bredia on his throne. I am not saying he's a good man, he's kind of an old asshole actually. But couldn't you have gone softer on him? The man was at his daughter's engagement. For God's sake. He should be grateful I didn't cut him in piece and throw those pieces at the crowd. Olivia felt chills. The cold look in his eyes told her that he was not joking. Visit. For the best no_serenity experience, teacher. The last thing we need is a war between human kingdoms. Especially when there's a new, more dangerous race emerged from the shadows. Her voice revealed the fear in her heart. Are you talking about the vampires? Michael asked, pretending to have no idea about them. Yeah. Did you read the papers? They suck our blood. Like, she stuttered for a moment. Giant mosquitoes? I can't even imagine. Her words revealed to Michael that they still haven't realized the real danger posed by the vampires. Otherwise, she wouldn't have compared the vampires with mosquitoes. Now that the vampires' secrecy had been exposed, she was sure they would be more aggressive and dangerous. I heard the Azer continent is in a messed up state due to all the war. They should have chosen Elon instead, after discussing vampires and the current state of events. Michael commented on the Azer continent. Ever since he arrived in this world, he never got the chance to visit Azer or Ar. However, thanks to the Alchemy Guild invitation, he could finally visit Azer. The competition has always been held in Azer. It's sort of a tradition, and the old alchemists in the guild are pretty stricklers to that tradition. What's the current state of Azer anyways? You have any ideas? Asked Michael to get some knowledge about Azer. Olivia leaned on the wooden edge, looking at the clear blue ocean before them. Zulon and Suvan are still at war with Thusia and Adrizel, where we are going to remain free of war for now. The last time I heard from my father, Thusia was winning the war, which is a good thing for you, isn't it, teacher? Olivia wasn't thrilled about Michael being the leader of the Thusian Alchemy Guild. Most Elon and Azer hated Thusia for waging war on other kingdoms and expanding too aggressively. Because of Thusia, thousands of people had become refugees and lost their livelihood. In fact, Bradford was accepting hundreds of refugees every single day. When you can't beat them, join them, Michael shrugged, pretending he didn't care. However, he was burning with rage. If Michael had the power, he would have decimated Thusia already. But since it wasn't the case, he could only use them to become stronger. Olivia had no response to him. They talked and lost track of time until the morning. Finally, the sun rose like a flower, gifting its petals to the world. Amid the dancing, the ocean was the blush of scarlet, the warmth of tangerine. Gazing toward the illuminated clouds, still beneath the ethereal glow, Olivia looked up at the marvelous sunrise and felt at home in a way she never had before. Only when the sun completely rose from the horizon did Kingdom Idrizel's outline faintly appear in their sight. Currently, Michael noticed many ships anchoring at the docks while many riding various beasts flew directly into the city without going through the city gates. Teacher, let's go. Olivia had already put on emerald green robes with the Alchemist Guild's emblem on the chest. Is that really necessary? Michael asked, looking at her extra-large robes that swept the ground as she walked. The latest _AP_SODIs are on website. Yep. She bobbed her head excitedly before leaping out of the ship to land on the dry land. Michael only noticed that most of the people going in and out of the city gates wore the same robes as Olivia. The number of green robes he saw almost gave him a headache. Among these green-dressed people, he looked somewhat strange in his black robes. Still, the soldiers in metal armor guarding the city did not stop them as they entered the city for the first time without giving any coins to the guards. Welcome to the city of Oxshore, Olivia said, grinning from ear to ear. The city of Oxshore was built on the banks of a large natural harbor and was truly a medieval metropolis. Its elegance was matched by the backdrop of a dormant volcano that helped shape the city into what it is today. Michael could not see far because of the buzzing crowd blocking his view. We will look around. Olivia had to raise her voice to get Michael's attention due to the crowd. Michael felt as though he had come to a festival. The city of Oxshore vaguely reminded him of Hawaii with the lush green mountains surrounding them. Any citizen of Oxshore knew that these hills' resources were of great importance. They were also influential in architectural designs as the vast majority of buildings have been built in shapes and with elements of the hills around them. The skyline was spreading with luxurious tall buildings, and even from afar, they managed to display their beauty. For the first time, Michael saw dwarves, elves, orcs, and beastmen overshadow the number of humans in the streets. The several bars, ethnic restaurants, and coffee houses he saw on either side of the street were evident of the multicultural ethnicity of Oxshore. Come on. I need to check out those herbal stores. Olivia dragged Michael by his hand. What? Didn't you get enough herbs from our garden? Michael asked, following her behind. In the entire Elon, Michael had the largest herbal garden. Granted that he lacked varieties like some other herbal gardens, it was still the largest with an abundance of herbs. I still need more. She didn't back off as she dragged him into a store. At the same, a green-robed youngster, a golden-dressed girl, and a raccoon walked out of a two-story building made of marble. Noth, the young man, and the young girl had silky brown hair. Only the girl's hair was longer in length than the young man's shoulder-length hair. They were neither too striking nor too unattractive. Instead, they looked plain normal except for the talking raccoon sitting atop the young man's shoulder. Damn it. In the future, let's use a portal. My butt hurts sitting on your shoulder. After walking out of the crowded building, the raccoon deeply inhaled a few breaths of fresh air as he cursed softly. Seeing the ugly expression on the raccoon's face, the young man smiled and raised his head. His gaze swept across the streets and could not help but sigh with praise. No wonder Oxshore is one of the richest cities in Azair, the young man said with a smile as he clicked his tongue and let out a sound of admiration. The raccoon was not interested in watching these buildings. Instead, his gaze swept across his surroundings before suddenly asking, "When are we heading back home?" Visit. For a better user experience, half a month from now, the young man said as he stepped onto the crowded streets. Let's first go to the auction house we saw before. It should have some of the things that we need. After which, we will make a trip to the Alchemist Guild. The young man rubbed his chin and answered while smiling. Yeah, those old farts love to collect all kinds of different precious herbs and ingredients. It may be possible that we'll find something tasty for me to snack on. I am damn hungry. Chapter 491. Meeting someone from Mazeroth. The trio was Noah Winston, Alicia, and the raccoon was the Golden Babaru. They were in Azair to attend the alchemy competition and win the Mystic Blood Orchid. He needed the Mystic Blood Orchid to concoct an ancient pill that would start Golden Babaru's metamorphosis. I heard the Alchemy Guild went all over this time. Any alchemist who has good skills will be a water bottle in the desert. They will recruit them in a flash. Hearing Noah's words, Alicia shook her head slightly. Although getting recruited by the Alchemy Guild is fruitful to some, Ultimately, it'll limit one's freedom, and if you ask me, it's not really worthwhile. What the shit? Not worthwhile. You heard of Gabriel, right? After hearing Alicia's words, Norvin rolled his eyes, curled his lips, and said, Alchemy King Gabriel. No one in Azair and Elon doesn't know him. Noah shrugged, laughing faintly. Not only did he know of him, but they almost fought against each other. Tell me about him. What's the big deal? Well, he was the largest black horse in the alchemy competition 30 years ago. No one knew him before that. Ever since he revealed his brilliance in the competition, the previous leader of the Alchemy Guild offered him the position of Guild Elder. Back then, when he became the Elder, he was the youngest to hold the position and was a 4-star alchemist. Noah explained to Norvin while navigating through the crowd. After that, with the resources of the guild behind him, he reached 5 stars and became the youngster 5-star alchemist in all of Elon and Azair. He enjoyed unrivaled fame, claiming himself as the Alchemy King Gabriel. But if it were not because of the guild, he would have at least needed 20 more years before reaching the recognition he has currently achieved. Alicia expressed her thoughts. Rumor has he's eyeing for the guild leader position. Noah heard the rumor through the Guardian spies in the Alchemy Guild. In addition, Noah also heard Gabriel was losing his mind over his sudden downgrade to the second-best alchemist in the continents. Guild leader position? What's he gonna do about the current leader? Kill him? Norvin chuckled, but his smile froze when he saw Noah's silence. Did you really think we are only here to compete? Noah winked at Norvin. Until now, Norvin thought Noah was here for the Mystic Blood Orchid. However, now he realized Noah plans to save the current leader of the Alchemy Guild. How do you plan to stop it? You know? The assassination, Alicia whispered. Visit. For the best known Surangi experience, they'll make the plan as I go. It always worked for me, Noah smiled. Despite knowing the assassination plot, he was pretty chill. I still think you should have joined the Alchemy Guild when they asked you to. If you had done that, we would have stopped the plot and gotten the orchid easily. Norvin rolled his eyes and continued to rant. They would have provided you with an endless supply of herbs and ingredients, so you could have stayed relaxed and saved the time needed to run all over the place to search for ingredients. The Guardian Guild is awesome, but they don't even have normal orchids. They don't focus on nurturing alchemists. Noah shook his head, listening to Norvin. I don't need Alchemy Guild to reach 5-star level. Norvin. Noah shrugged his shoulders. With Andreas, who was the best of the best, guiding him by his side, he did not doubt reaching not 5 stars but 6 stars. Because of Andreas, he became a young 4-star alchemist from a young man who didn't know anything about alchemy in just a short 5 years. It was also because he was unclear just how difficult it was for ordinary alchemists to raise their ability swiftly. After all, not everyone was as lucky as him. Times like this, I feel like we have to appreciate him, you know. As soon as Alicia heard these words, she clenched her fist while the veins underneath her skin bulged up. Even her eyes turned red in a flash. Do not speak about him in front of me. Noah could feel the air around him getting chillier. Obviously by him, Norvin meant Ghost, who almost destroyed Alicia's family when he revealed Peter was the vigilante in front of half the kingdom. To this day, Peter was tangled in investigations and house arrest by the Guardians. Additionally, the young masters who Peter attacked put several bounties on Peter's head in the Grim Reapers Guild. And 3 Grim Reapers almost succeeded in taking Peter's life. They would have killed him if it wasn't for Noah. You should be pissed too. You know what he did to your cousin, to her surprise. Noah did not say anything, nor did he seem mad at Ghost. In fact, Noah wasn't, because there was no reason for him to be mad at Ghost. If anything, Noah was grateful that Ghost did not kill Andrews even though he had the chance to. Noah warned Andrews and explained what would happen to him. Still, Andrews competed in the competition for Princess Catherine. After knowing what happened in the tournament, Noah respected Ghost. Even with the power of Layla Alden behind him, Andrews couldn't beat Ghost. As far as Noah was concerned, Ghost won the tournament fair and square. Yet, because of Catherine's impulse, they pushed Ghost to the point he took away half of their kingdom. As for Peter, Noah completely blamed Peter for everything that happened to him. Peter deserved it, as he had no right to dress up as a vigilante and beat up young masters just to hone his skills. Hey! We have arrived at the auction house. Visit. For the best known surrounding experience hearing Norvin, Noah's footsteps slowly came to a stop. He raised his head and eyed the huge building and the banner of the single water droplet that appeared at the end of the street. Surprise involuntarily surfaced on his face as he shook his head and sighed. Whoa, just a branch looks bigger than many prestigious auction houses belonging to Elon and Azair. Aqua Auction House truly is a giant in the auction business. Both Alicia and Norvin nodded in agreement with his words. They eyed the huge building that was like a bottomless pit, swallowing up the unceasing flow of people. His hands gently inserted into his sleeves as he turned his head around. Let's go in and take a look at what the #1 auction house has to offer. Hopefully, we will be able to find the things that we need. Once he said those words, Noah led the way as they slowly walked to the end of a spacious street paved with bluestone. As they gradually walked into the grandiose Aqua Auction House, Norvin's raccoon brows rose higher and higher. They had to squeeze through the crowd walking before them to reach the auction house, and the word house may be a bit of an understatement as the building looked like a palace. Noah was expressionless as he passed through the crowd. Once he entered the auction house, a layer of light covered him. The noisiness outside seemed to have become isolated. He could tell the phenomenon was due to the arrays around the palace. Norvin's gaze swept everywhere. Immediately, his mouth widened as he eyed the enormous hall that resembled a crystal city. Inside the auction house, fully armored expressionless guards with Aqua House symbols engraved on their chests patrolled the hall like clockwork. Noah could sense at least 20 sharp gazes sweeping across every part of his body when he entered the hall. It really lives up to its name as the #1 auction house in the world. This manner of extravagance won't come cheap, Noah said, looking around the hall. There were countless crystal counters placed in the large hall. There was an unceasing flow of people staring at the rare items placed on the red cloth inside the counters. The tags under these items stated their prices. However, all the prices of these items were at least 50,000 gold coins. These high prices were sufficient to cause people to gasp in shock. These are the outer sales counters. The things that are sold here are not considered too valuable. The real deal will be upstairs. Norvin licked his lips. Don't forget about the Aqua auction next week, which you need a token. Unless, of course, you're planning to be a spectator, Norvin responded to Alicia's words. Quit worrying. I have someone to get me the token visit. For a better user experience, Norvin couldn't help rolling his eyes. Let me guess, a girl? Noah nodded as Norvin knocked him on the head. You are the reason many of us don't get any girls. What shit are you spouting? Alicia silently yelled at Norvin. You're not even a human and no one stopped you from finding yourself a girl monkey. Norvin bore his teeth at Alicia. If it weren't for the patrolling soldiers around them, he would have lunged at her and made a mess out of her neatly braided hair. Come, Noah walked towards the marble stairs leading to the upper floors. He was about to climb the stairs when he saw the hall become entirely silent. Seeing this sudden commotion, it appeared that there was a big shot who had quite a high status walking out from there. He could notice the sudden change in the youngsters' faces. They remained still with slightly open mouths. While looking around the hall, Norvin lost his balance and fell down. Then, he saw a somewhat blue-colored and blurry, lovely, tender figure. Lowering his gaze, Norvin saw a pair of shining blue long boots. The heel of the long boots was slightly sharp as it released waves of clear and sweet-sounding click-clack sounds on the clear and shiny marble ground, like a beautiful musical note. His gaze drifted a little higher to see a pair of long, white, tender feet. Not bad. Norvin whistles, not bothering to hide his pervy look. Still, he was better than some men in the hall whose faces were filled with longing and eyes were sparkling. Gradually lifting his head slightly, his gaze finally seeped through the gap and saw a gorgeous and moving face. Immediately, shock slowly climbed onto his face as he softly muttered, Edith! At the same time, a black-dressed young man who was standing in the corner away from the prying eyes was pleasantly surprised by the girl. Teacher, you know her? Olivia asked. Unfortunately, yeah, Michael replied, and seeing Edith was walking towards Noah, he sighed. Visit. For the best no underscore ANG experience. This guy's harem is getting bigger by the day. Chapter 492. Olivia's love interest. As the unmistakable sound of footsteps moved closer, Edith, surrounded by the crowd, finally slowly walked out of it. She was wearing a bright deep-sea blue-colored tight dress. The elegant dress was gorgeously and meticulously made, precisely and perfectly outlining the beautiful curves in her body. For many men, she was a stunning creature. Her somewhat shallow smile and pretty face contained an unknown meaning behind it. Her alluring gaze was blankly paused at Noah. Immediately, a shy smile surfaced on her angelic face. Being the focus of the hottest girl in the hall undoubtedly caused everyone to shift their gaze over to Noah. When they eyed the gorgeous girl's extremely rare and strange emotion, some envy toward the young man rose in their hearts without them realizing it. Ignoring those sharp, knife-like gazes from his surroundings, Noah smiled at Edith, who was staring at him blankly. His smile was gentle, and the dark pupils were crystal clear as pure water. Although Noah was wearing a mask to change his facial structure, Edith saw through the mask without a problem. Emitting clear footsteps, Edith slowly walked toward Noah. A moment later, she stopped in front of him. Being closer to the man she loves, her face reddened in a flash, and she did not realize she was blushing. "Kai, what a pleasant surprise!" she smiled, tilting her head. Since Noah was wearing the mask she gave him, she called him by a fake name instead of his real name, which would reveal his identity. "And who is this little fella?" She lifted her pretty face and greeted Norvin, who climbed onto Noah's shoulder with another smile. "Miss Edith, I thought you were in Mazeroth." Noah greeted her back with a smile. Usually, he would address her by her name without any honorifics. However, Noah didn't call her Edith in front of all the people who stared at Edith like wolves. After Noah greeted Edith, there were a few moments of awkward silence between them. Either of them couldn't seem to find a word to continue the conversation. "Get a room already." Looking at the interaction between Edith and Noah, Michael rolled his eyes. He was getting annoyed with Noah and Edith. "Visit. For the best known serenity experience." "Who is she?" Olivia elbowed Michael. "I met her in Mazeroth. It seems she too got early holidays like me," Michael quietly said. He and Olivia stood way back from Noah and Edith. Hence the reason why Noah or Edith couldn't see him. He wanted to peacefully spend some time apart from all the Dark Lord stuff. But seeing Noah, Michael felt this trip would not be drama-free. "Do not fall in love with that guy." Michael leaned on the wall, folding his arms. Then he warned Olivia before she fell in love with Noah and ended up in his ever-growing harem. "What the hell are you talking about?" Michael was surprised. He turned his gaze from Edith to Olivia, who clicked her tongue, realizing she blurted out something she shouldn't have. "You playa." Michael poked her cheek with a grin. He got into a playful mood when he heard his student eyed someone. As long as it wasn't Noah, he would be happy for her. It's... Olivia's face flushed red as he struggled to find the words. "Ricky?" Olivia finally uttered the name, shocking Michael. "Ricky? You mean our Ricky?" Michael couldn't believe what he had just heard for a few moments. Olivia was a wealthy noble. On the contrary, Ricky was a commoner. As far as Michael learned about this world, marriage between a noble and a commoner was rare. He wondered if Olivia's father and mother would be okay with her decision. "I wanted to talk to you about this, teacher, but I didn't get the right time." Olivia's face turned serious, revealing the concern in her heart. Meanwhile, the people were still drooling at Edith instead of going with their life. "I didn't get the chance to thank you, Kai. Let me treat you to a meal. I know a really great place nearby." Edith pursed her sleek red lips and placed her hands behind her, leaning her body slightly forward as she faced Noah. "Did you come here to buy something?" "No shit." Norvin rolled his eyes after hearing her words. But, since she was so love-struck, she overlooked the obvious. "What star level are you?" asked Edith curiously, without even giving Noah the time to answer her previous question. "The latest _AP_SODIs are on _ website. Just lucky enough to reach 4-star. Lucky?" For an ordinary person, advancing from a 1-star to 2-star alchemist is impossible without at least 5 to 6 years of time. Yet, you have reached 4-star level in a couple of years. I'm afraid that is not mere luck. Eyeing the young man who revealed something shocking at every instance, Edith sighed helplessly. But soon, another youngster's image emerged in her mind. Noah shook his head and smiled. However, he did not continue to pursue this question. Instead, his gaze swept across the hall, realizing that he and Edith had already become the center of attention. Immediately, he whispered, "Are you still the supervisor here?" "I am afraid so," Edith giggled, ignoring the hundreds of gazes on her. She was quite used to getting such attention. Fortunately, Edith was here alone. If she had come with Victoria, she was sure many youngsters would have fallen to the ground. "Can we find a quiet place to talk?" Noah scanned the large crowd around him, who had their ears lifted vertically, and helplessly said, "Of course, follow me." Edith smiled, nodding her head. She had just turned around when her gaze suddenly drifted to Alicia, who was behind Noah and leaning against a crystal counter while watching the items in boredom. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "Is she with you?" "Huh? Why? You two need some time alone?" Alicia was quite annoyed by how Edith and Noah acted in front of her. Still, she revealed a cold smile to tease Edith. Being teased by Alicia in such a manner, a faint redness swarmed onto Edith's exquisite face. However, it was fortunate that she was extremely good at handling issues with human relations. She gave an immediate sweet smile and said, "Follow me, miss. I hope whenever you're leading us to have something to eat." "I'm starving," Norvin said as his stomach let out a growl. "We have spent a long time hurrying on our journey here." Noah was embarrassed as he smiled at Edith. He wanted to punch Norvin in the face because he knew he made the sound intentionally. "It's okay. Come 1 inch." Edith turned around and slowly walked toward a staircase in one corner of the hall. Her heels stepped on the shiny, clean, bluestone ground surface, emitting a click-clack sound. Her elegant pace caused people to be unable not to fall into a deep longing for her. Suddenly, Edith stopped and looked at the far end of the hall. "Something wrong?" Noah asked. "No, it's just nothing. Let's go." Edith could swear she saw Ghost. But what were the odds of meeting him in the Azure continent? She heard he had become the king of Bradford. Hence, she naturally thought she would be busy dealing with the kingdom. But, yet again, he was also a 5-star alchemist, and almost every single alchemist would visit Azure for the competition. Just the thought of him gave her chills. For now, she shoved the thoughts back to the back of her mind and led them upstairs. At the end of the stairs, they saw a golden door flanked by 2 more armored guards. Noticing the trio of man, woman, and a raccoon following behind Edith, the guards eyed each other. According to the rules, people who were not VIP members were usually not allowed to enter. Visit. For the best no_ing experience, however, Edith was currently holding the post of supervisor. Her authority was quite great. At that moment, none of them dared to stop them. Only when the 3 of them were about to enter did a guard have no choice but to bite the bullet and take a step forward. However, before he could speak, Edith gave him a faint glance, which caused him to swallow the words in his throat. He smiled bitterly and stepped back. "They are with me." Edith simply waved off the guards, who quickly opened the doors for her. The hall they entered was no different than the downstairs, except there were only 10 or 20 people in the hall. They heard metal boots banging on the stairs just after entering the hall. Following the rumbling of footsteps, a few human figures slowly appeared at the bending corner of the stairs. The man who was leading them was around the same age as Noah. He was tall, lean, mean, and had 2 pointy ears, which indicates his elven race. His somewhat pale white face was clearly a result of overindulgence in sensual pleasures. Although the build of the elf did not appear strong, he was actually a strong person who had just reached the core formation stage level 5. "Shit," Edith mumbled under her breath as soon as she noticed the elf, whose breathing just became slightly erratic. Additionally, he shamelessly rubbed his crotch while walking toward Edith. Her gentle smile vanished and was replaced with a deep frown. Edith, this place is where Aqua Clan conducts official business. Other people are not allowed to enter, but what I see here, other people, the elf-eyed Noah, Alicia, and Norvin for a second and then grimaced. He didn't bother to hide the disgust and hatred he had towards other races from his pale face. Watching the disgust in Edith's eyes, the young man's face immediately became much gloomier. They are with me. The rules clearly say I can bring my friends anywhere I want. Edith's cold voice did not give the other party any face. Afterward, Edith turned around and walked away from the elf and his group. The elf's mouth twitched after being ignored by Edith in front of his subordinates. This was especially so when Edith grabbed Noah's hand for a second. An unknown jealous flame instantly rose in the elf's eyes. Although Edith was usually full of smiles, warm and friendly, it was not a secret she hated him. To be honest, many girls in the Aqua Clan hated him. Still, they had to put off his harassment and nonsense because of his status in the Aqua Clan. Gangbang, is that your kink now? Looking at Edith's back, the elf laughed. Edith was expressionless and kept walking as though she had not heard the obscene words of the elf. However, Norvin noticed her nails had already viciously clawed into her palm. Unlike Edith, Noah didn't remain calm. Instead, he halted his steps before grabbing Edith's hands. Then, he stepped in front of her, shielding her from the elf's disgusting look. Boom! The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. Michael was talking to Olivia about her love life when suddenly something hit the ground after shattering the glass above them. As he looked down on the ground, Michael saw the elf who went upstairs a few minutes ago, twitching and bleeding on the floor. Noah, Michael sighed. Chapter 493 Ghost will be your judge. What the hell? Olivia was startled by the sudden turn of events. She was already tense talking about her future with Michael. Then when the elf shattered the glass wall above her, her heart almost leaped out of her chest. To Michael's surprise, the elf took out a healing potion he had brewed. Michael could recognize the potions he brewed anywhere, anytime. As soon as the elf chugged the healing potion down his throat, the bruises on his face quickly closed up. Although the elf was caught off guard by Noah's sudden attack, the elf sensed the human was stronger than him by the force of his attack. But, unfortunately, Idrizel was in the range of void. Hence, the people lost the ability to see others' cultivation levels. Human trash. Today, even if that bitch wants to protect you, you can forget about leaving the auction house alive. The elf screamed with boiling killing intent and picked himself up from the floor. Then the elf smashed the vial on the ground as the shattered vial joined the hundreds of broken glass pieces on the ground already. The elf immediately waved as a golden circle appeared around him. Seeing this, the people quickly backed off, forming an ample empty space in the hall. However, before the elf could finish casting the spell, an ethereal form of a giant fist appeared out of nowhere and hit him through the golden circle. The punch emitted a soft crack sound and following which, the elf coughed up a mouth full of fresh blood. A millisecond after he coughed up blood, his body was also thrust by the strong and vicious force, resulting in him being violently shot into the wall. Immediately, he spat out another mouthful of fresh blood. His legs knelt on the ground while his body was curled up in pain. Everything happened quickly, from the elf hitting the ground after breaking the glass wall above to being sent flying into the wall. So many didn't even comprehend what just happened. Michael and Olivia halted their conversation to see the fight. Only when the elf hit the ground after colliding with the wall could Edith realize what just happened. Shock and disbelief immediately covered her stunning face. At this moment, the subordinates beside the elf finally recovered from this split-second occurrence. When they eyed their master's miserable state, they were shocked first. Then they immediately surrounded Noah angrily as they unsheathed their weapons. In addition to the elf's guards, the Aqua Clan guards also surrounded Noah since he had just attacked one of their own, and it was their duty to apprehend Noah dead or alive. I order all of you to stand down. Then, seeing the guards surrounding them, Edith pulled herself out of the shock to stomp on the ground. Her domineering shout echoed through the hall. Hearing Edith's shout, a few guards hesitated for a moment. Their master may have the courage to offend Edith, but it did not mean that they also had such courage. "What the hell is going on, teacher?" Olivia stepped closer to Michael involuntarily. Visit. For a better user experience, pretty girl, two young masters. This is called the recipe of shitstorm. Michael leaned on the wall, watching the elf struggling to pick himself up. He quickly put his hand behind as he took out a spider from the system storage to send to crawling to the elf. Since Noah had made an enemy out of the elf, Michael planned to make an ally out of them. Then, if or when the time comes, Michael would be able to use the elf and his family against Noah and his allies. "If any of you dare take a step forward, then all of you will be banned from Aqua Clan. Although you are not my subordinates, just think, who are the elders gonna listen, few lowly guards or me?" The guards immediately took a step back when they heard Edith. The guards' last need was to get between the young master and Edith. They knew quarrels between them were nothing out of the ordinary. They would fight today and mingle tomorrow, but if they stuck between them, the elders wouldn't think twice before firing them. Hence, most guards let Edith deal with the clan and the elf and stepped back. The rest stared at Edith's anger-filled eyes for a few moments before unwillingly pulling back. "Take your master to wherever you came from," Edith coldly ordered with her delicate hand pointed to the entrance. Michael saw the elf finally getting to his feet and drinking another vial of healing potion. Instead of trying to cast another spell, the elf shouted at Edith and Noah, looking at the elf from upstairs. "All right, Edith, you got guts. You actually helped an outsider ambush me. Just wait." The elf took a step forward only to stagger. Considering Michael had X-ray eyes, he saw the elf's core formation level 5 cultivation and Noah's core strengthening level 2 cultivation. The power gap between them was enormous, so there was no way the elf could defeat Noah. Quickly, the elf's subordinates grabbed him before falling to the ground again. He rubbed off the blood stain from the corner of his mouth and angrily stared at his subordinates. Immediately, his pupils contained a dark coldness and gloominess as he turned toward Noah by Edith's side. His breathing was hurried as he said with a dark voice, "You haven't heard the last of Galen Baylay." After leaving those vicious words, the elf maliciously slapped the poor guard by his side and snarled at him, "Fool, go." "Great, we made another enemy, hooray." Norvin sighed, laughing bitterly. "I am sorry I got you into trouble, Edith, but I couldn't watch him badmouth you." Edith's heart immediately warmed. Hearing his words, she couldn't help smiling and blushing. "I am sorry." Noah gently placed his hand on Edith's shoulder and apologized. In a flash, her rosy face completely turned red. Visit. For the best known serenity experience. It's all right. Although Galen will definitely cry and complain to his grandfather, they won't meddle with the problems of youngsters. "We will deal with Galen if he tries anything," Noah assured her with his captivating smile. "That's some next-level cringe shit." Michael shook his head. "Where are my manners?" The little guy said he's hungry, right? "Come on, follow me." Edith's usual bright smile resurfaced on her face as she walked towards the door at the hall's end. The guards flanking the door pushed open the door for Edith, revealing a spacious room with several bookshelves neatly erected within. There were various different kinds of thick books placed on these bookshelves. Edith passed through them and finally came to the front of a work desk. She then turned around, looking at Noah with a smile. "Have a seat. Now, can you tell me just what you need?" Pointing at the chairs at the side, she asked. They nodded, randomly pulling out a chair and sitting down. Then, after musing for a moment, Nia stared at Edith. "Who was that elf?" Meanwhile, Norvin reached for the fruit basket on the table and picked up a juicy red apple to munch on. Edith made a detour around the table and sat behind it. Her lips slightly pouted as she said with a smile, "His grandfather is the Aqua Clan branch leader in Adrizel. Since King Maxim and Galen's grandfather have been in talks to form an alliance, I have to act as the liaison between them. Usually, he would avoid me when I was with Victoria. But since she's not here, he got cocky." Edith brushed over the black hair of her forehead and said somewhat tiredly, "It was evident to Noah that the elf has been troubling her for some time now." "Princess Victoria?" Alicia asked. "You know her?" Alicia nodded at Edith. "Everyone knows her, I guess." Recently, I heard she single-handedly destroyed House of Kayla visit. For a better user experience. Sounds like someone I used to know, Norvin casually said, laying on the table. Edith frowned. When she looked at Noah, he just let out a deep breath. I was immature and impulsive. Those days are behind me now. Noah didn't suddenly have a change of heart about killing. Honestly, he learned the hard way that taking a life should be the last resort. He still had nightmares about the children who lost their parents because of his ruthlessness. So that day when those children looked at him with a confused look in their eyes, wondering why their parents had left them, Noah's heart shattered into pieces. Noticing the sudden pain in Noah's eyes, Edith quickly changed the topic while Alicia gave a cold look to Norvin, wordlessly telling him to shut up. You don't have to worry about Galen. On the contrary, he should be worried about Victoria. If she knew what happened today, she wouldn't give a damn about the alliance. Instead, she would kick the crap out of Galen. Now I have to think of ways to calm her down when she returns from Mazeroth. Speaking of Mazeroth, have you seen him? Norvin's curiosity got the better of him. Only after uttering these words did he realize he shouldn't have asked the question in front of Alicia. To everyone's surprise, Edith understood whom he meant by him. Unfortunately, yeah, we met him. Edith's face turned darker and gloomier, as though the light had been drained from her face. If you're going to compete in the alchemy competition, you will meet him, because he will be one of the judges. As soon as Alicia heard Edith, she clenched her fist to the point her nails protruded into her soft palm and blood began to trickle down to the ground. I heard what he did, and I'm sorry, Alicia, Edith softly spoke. For a few moments, Alicia didn't respond. I will pay him back in thousands of folds when I get the chance. Visit. For a better user experience. Chapter 494. Saving Olivia from marrying Noah. Meanwhile, Michael and Olivia went to the corner of the hall and discussed what she planned to do with Ricky. What should I do, teacher? My father will never accept Ricky. Her eyes watered behind the round glasses. Usually, Michael would avoid poking his nose into the love lives of others because 99% of the time it would backfire. However, since both Ricky and Olivia were an important part of his future plans, he had to intervene because they messed up as Catherine and Andrews did. First, you can drop calling me teacher in private. Feels weird. We are discussing your love life, so I'd say we are long past mentor-disciple relationship, Michael said, leaning on the wall. Looking at his calm demeanor gave Akvia some strength to face her father. This explains why Ricky was acting so weird, weirder than usual. Michael recalled Ricky avoiding eye contact and talking way less than usual after he returned from Mazeroth. Now he realized Ricky was afraid of him loving Olivia, who was Michael's student. He was freaking out to talk to you more than me. He was afraid you would kill him. What? Michael frowned. You do have a pretty violent history of dealing things ghost. She bitterly grinned, feeling weird calling him by his name for the first time. Still, I'm not a freaking psychopath, Michael sighed. Is there any other reason your father doesn't want you to marry Ricky apart from him being a commoner? Olivia nodded, and what she said next completely stunned Michael. He wants me to marry Mary? She stuttered, struggling to say the next words. Speak. Olivia took a deep breath and mustered enough courage. He wants me to marry Noah Winston. As soon as she said that, Michael stopped leaning on the wall. His body tensed. The last thing he wanted was to have one of his subordinates marry his future archenemy. The latest _AP_SODIES are on website. Is he crazy? Olivia noticed the sudden change in Ghost's face. If he marries you to Noah, you will just be a +1 in his packs of wives. Despite his hatred for Noah's harem, Michael really cared for Olivia. He didn't want her to become another member of Noah's harem. However, Ricky was a better choice than Noah. Besides, Ricky had all the qualities a man should have. He was hardworking, loyal, and honest. What did you tell him? I said no, obviously. He said Ricky is not noble and not strong enough to protect me. Ghost, what should I do? I can't make Ricky strong like Noah. As far as I know, only you can stand head-to-head with him in your generation. Michael leaned closer to Olivia. Unless he's already at soul-refining stage, he can't stand head-to-head with me. The moment Olivia heard his words, Her body went rigid and her eyes opened as wide as they could. You, soul. Yes, Michael heard the system awarding him with 5,000 badass points for impressing Olivia. Ignoring the notification, Michael focused on the topic at hand. What if I vouched for Ricky? I can make him stronger and give him a minister position in Bradford. That would make him sort of a noble. Olivia immediately grabbed Michael's hands and squeezed them. You would do that for us? Really? Her eyes sparkled, filled with hope and joy. Visit. For the best known to serve the experience. Why not? Anything to save my favorite disciple from joining a harem. Michael ruffled Olivia's head as though she was a kid. But Ghost. There's a problem. Her smile disappeared. In a flash, the gloomy look she had before resurfaced on her pretty face. My father said Noah said yes to marry me. So he's planning an engagement next month. I just heard this 3 days ago. Michael furrowed his brows. He couldn't believe Noah's audacity to marry another one when he already had so many girls to marry. Yet, deep down, Michael knew that if Olivia told Noah she was in love with someone else, Noah wouldn't force her. After all, Noah was a good guy. Talk to Noah and tell him you're in love with Ricky. He's a nice guy. He will understand. Hell, if you ask him, he might even tell your dad he doesn't want to marry you. Seeing Olivia's forehead forming beads of sweat, Michael gently patted her on the back and led her outside. After joining the crowd on the street, Michael looked over the heads to see a building with the board saying Horith in hanging above a wooden door. I have to find a way to get into their compound. Currently, the Winstons aren't seeing anyone, thanks to the freaking war going on there. Why didn't you attend the engagement ceremony then? All the Winstons would be there. Olivia punched Michael on the shoulder while walking towards the inn. Are you serious? You just messed up King Breedia. I don't think they would ever meet someone close to you. But you're different. Just go and talk to them. They are nice people. I will talk to your dad after we go back. Thank you, Ghost. You're the best. She wrapped her arms around his shoulder and squeezed him. She felt like something heavy was being lifted off of her shoulder. His reassurance gave her confidence. Nothing eventful happened during Michael's visit to the inn. The two ordered salads and hot water and spent some time chatting. Michael gave her some pointers in alchemy. By the time they stepped out of the inn, the streets had become almost unwalkable. After exiting the inn, Michael walked towards the uniquely architectured building in the distance. One thing was obvious to Michael. Whoever built that building took the Alchemy Guild concept too far, as the building looked literally like a giant cauldron built with emeralds. The windows in the building resembled the fire outlets of an alchemy cauldron. At the top of the building was an enormous cover that creeped downwards, covering all the rooms below it. During the walk towards the building, they noticed the main roads in the city already had completely armed knight units patrolling in the streets and mages patrolling the skies above. Clearly, this was due to the alchemist competition which was about to begin. After all, if a commotion were to occur at such a large grand meeting, it would have many different large impacts on the kingdom. Therefore, the guild and the king needed to prevent any such possibilities. Next time we are flying, Michael twisted Olivia's ears. She was the one who suggested they should walk instead of flying. Because of her suggestion, he almost got squeezed by the crowd. Fortunately, after enduring such a painful walk, they finally reached the guild. I could have such a grand welcome, Michael sighed inside. Then, with both his hands inside his pockets, he slowly climbed the marble steps leading into the building. Michael had just followed the human flow and entered the association when a disturbance occurred not far behind him. Like everyone else, he turned around to see what was happening. Visit. For the best known surrounding experience, the source of the commotion was a carriage made of gold and several engravings of a strange beast on the gold being pulled by 4 snow-white Pegasi. The strange-looking beast, with a blue-colored flame rising from its body, was drawn on the golden carriage. The strange beast was large and had a ferocious appearance, emitting a feeling that would faintly frighten the hearts of those who looked at it. The imperial crest. Several people near him softly muttered. Surrounding the horse carriage, over 10 people wrapped entirely in blue robes accompanying it. Michael's gaze swept across these blue-robed people and his eyes shrunk. They were soul-refining level 4 warriors. Who is this Empress of R? Michael asked himself in surprise as his gaze scanned the carriage. A few moments later, one of the guards slowly opened the door while the other blackguards swiftly formed a steady circle around the carriage. At the same time, numerous gazes that were as sharp as an eagle shot out from the guards, scanning the crowd for threats. Under the protective circle of several soul-refining stage guards, someone extended their smooth, delicate hand from within. The hand gracefully held the handle of the carriage door. Afterward, a beautiful figure slowly walked out and appeared in everyone's sight. Just like most girls in his life, she was damn beautiful. She was wearing a sparkling blue long skirt with golden lines. Under the influence of the imperial family, her exquisite appearance faintly seeped out a noble, imposing presence that was her birthright. A golden belt was worn on her narrow and delicate waist, displaying the small waist vividly and incisively. To his eyes, she appeared to be 16 or 17 years old. She had a perfect hourglass structure, jaw structure, and bubbly eyes with baby-fat cheeks to make any man drool over her. Still, she wasn't pretty enough to rival Gaia or Layla. But given time, she might rival them in terms of beauty. Her pretty face contained a smile fit for a girl from the royal family. However, each time her gaze swept across the surroundings, he had a feeling she might not be as ladylike as she seemed. "Do you know who she is?" Michael asked Olivia. Unlike many, Michael did not drool at her. He was mature enough to remain calm. "TSK, what a beautiful girl." A wave of cheers immediately erupted from the surrounding crowd watching the young lady. The people swiftly threw over several heated gazes. Although the girl belonged to the royal daily of R, it did not stop the crowd from drooling at her beauty. "My guess would be Jennifer Voldegard. I heard that her teacher is the deputy chairman Alred. I think that she must have come here for the competition. No shit, genius?" Michael laughed bitterly. While climbing the stairs with her guards, Michael shifted his focus to the nearby conversations. Some well-informed individuals within the crowd identified the young lady. "She seems a little too young to compete, don't you think? Visit. For the best known Serenji experience, she is young, but her alchemy talent is something that even the chairman had praised non-stop. I have heard that half a year ago, she had already reached a 3-star level. Still not at the level of Alchemist Ghost." The guy who just said these words put a smile on Michael's face. He had learned his name had started to spread. Soon, he would be renowned in the Azer continent too. Chapter 495, Becoming the Judge. Some of the older middle-aged alchemists who planned to compete avoided direct eye contact with others as they felt embarrassed. Being squeezed into the crowd, Michael heard the conversations of the people around him and learned a few things about Jennifer Voldegard. He once again turned his gaze to Jennifer, who was walking the steps with her guards. Core formation stage and 3-star alchemist level, not bad. Michael thought to himself. Her achievements were quite stunning to the others, but not for Michael. With the wealth of the royal family behind, as long as she possessed the basic talent needed to become an alchemist, they could use their wealth and resources to train her into a 4- or 5-star alchemist with ease. Moreover, from the conversation he heard, Jennifer's talent for alchemy was quite good. Therefore, having such an achievement was within expectations. Under the protection of the guards, Jennifer swaggered through the packed crowd into the building without meeting any obstruction. As Jennifer disappeared from his sight, Michael and Olivia squeezed through, pushing aside the crowd until they finally reached a spacious hall. He eyed the vast hall and exhaled a long breath of air. Then, wiping off the sweat beads on her forehead, Olivia walked toward the western hall area as though she had walked there countless times. Unlike the rest of the hall, the western area was blocked by lines of golden pole barricades. Several guards armored from head to toe raised their hands, noticing Olivia and Michael. "Restricted area." "Not for me. I am one of the judges." Michael flicked his wrist, retrieving the invitation letter from the system storage. Since the guards were wearing metal helmets, he could not see the shock on their faces. The guard before Michael took the invitation letter and opened it up only to get startled after a few moments. You are Ghost?" One and only, okay teacher. You deal with this. I have to go register my team over there. Olivia looked over at the crowded southern side of the hall. Cool. The latest _studies are on the website. She rushed towards the crowd while the guard eyed Michael from top to bottom. So young, the guard mumbled under his breath. Hey, race my core disciple card. I'll help you confirm my identity. With another flick of his wrist, Michael took out the golden card from the system storage. The guard looked at the name Ghost embossed on the golden card in black. Please forgive us, my lord. The guard looked at the card and the invitation letter for a moment before stuttering. It's okay. You guys are just doing your job. Now can I go in? Yes, my lord. Please this way. Michael jumped over the golden poles and walked towards the door by himself instead of waiting for the guards to remove the poles. After Michael disappeared through the door, the guards were stunned. What a nice guy! The guard who checked the invitation letter exclaimed to the other guard. Yeah, for a 5-star alchemist, he's surprisingly chill. It's a breath of fresh air for a change. The guards conversed. Working as the guards in the alchemy guild, they had seen their fair share of talented alchemists, and they all had one thing in common: arrogance. The moment they reached the 3-star level, the alchemists would treat the guards like dirt. But seeing a 5-star alchemist who dethroned Alchemy King Gabriel being so humble and modest, they were genuinely surprised. Immediately, Michael's status in their hearts reached another level. Passing the guards, Michael walked into the corridor brightly lit with a straight line of chandeliers and slowly climbed up the stairs. The stairs led him to a brightly lit hall tiled with marble stone that reflected everything in the room. The hall had a luxurious feel thanks to all the golden tables, chandeliers radiating gold light, golden windows, and even the sofa set was inlaid with gold lines surrounding a pearl-white cushion. Currently, only a chubby old man with a pointy beard sat on the sofa blowing the cup in his hand. The old man had a mix of white and black hair, no mustache, and wore a green robe. He was calmly sipping the tea when he noticed Michael. Young man, you must be Ghost. The old man greeted Michael with a grin. And you must be? Asian Dawson, humble 5-star alchemist and one of the grandmasters. The old man reached out to shake Michael's hands. Ghost, Michael simply said after firmly shaking his hands. Visit. For the best known to the experience. A man of few words, I presume. You have a long list of achievements than this old man ever had. Well, if I listed out everything, I would look like an arrogant brat. Michael smiled as he leaned back on the sofa. Quite a crowd out there. What's the format here? Hearing Michael's question, Adovan leaned forward and drew a huge rectangle on the tea table's surface as he continued with a smile. All the alchemists in the competition will be participating simultaneously on a huge platform. We will have a few rounds, and the competition's requirements will gradually become harder. Like in any other competition, we will eliminate many at the end of each round. Whoever can stand out among the cream of the crop will be the final victor. This is the format for both individual and group. Oh. Michael nodded his head slightly. He could imagine the spectacular view of hundreds or thousands of alchemists raising their flames and refining pills and potions on the same platform while people cheered for them. Back then, when I first participated, I almost peed myself. Nowadays, the alchemists are too strong both mentally and physically. Asian laughed, appearing to know what Michael was thinking. Here, as a fellow judge, you should take a look at this name list. Adovan flicked his wrist, taking out a golden parchment from his space ring. Michael was somewhat curious as he opened the parchment to see the long name list. What surprised Michael was there were names still appearing on the list as he was reading the list. Michael kept reading all the names until his eyes stopped at the name Lillian Icarus. Lillian Icarus. That's Gabriel's successor. Do you know him? As though Asian knew Michael's gaze was locked on Lillian's name, he explained. I heard about it somewhere. Michael simply brushed it over. But, of course, he couldn't say he read it in the book he bought from Lord Information. Dealing with Lord Information wasn't something one should brag about. Michael then noticed Noah's name appearing on the bottom of the list, and then the name Jennifer Voldegard appeared as Asian began to speak again. You might be familiar with another Voldegard, right? Lane Voldegard? Michael nodded. He's my alchemy teacher in Mazeroth. So this Jennifer Voldegard, is she a relative? It's complicated and it's not my place to explain. Michael was surprised inside, but didn't show any expression on his face. The latest _AP_SODIes are on website. Have you ever met her? Quickly asked Aishin, changing the topic away from Professor Lane. I have seen her for a moment at the entrance just now, Michael nodded. Don't look down on that girl. Under the support of the Imperial family, she has so many hidden cards that would dazzle people. Aishin smiled and reminded him. She could have all the hidden cards in the world, but he had something she could never have, the system. As he was looking through the name list, the parchment glowed for a moment, and then the tiny stars appeared beside each name. Most had 2 stars, some had 3, and only a few had 4 stars. As you can see, we have quite a talented roster here. Just counting the 3-star alchemists, there are already 13 of them. So tell me, from one judge to another, who do you think will win the competition? Noah, Michael immediately thought in his mind. There was no doubt in his mind. After all, Noah had a 6-star alchemist grandpa in his ring. It would be funny and embarrassing if Noah didn't win the competition as far as Michael was concerned. I have no guesses, Lord Aishin, since I don't know most of them on the list. A few more sips later, Aishin finished his tea and placed the cup on the table. Young man, you still have one little thing to do before entering the judges' panel. Alchemists from the guild don't have this procedure, but since you're an outsider, it's the rule. I hope you don't mind. Of course not. It makes sense, actually. Wonderful. Aishin stood up, smiled, and said, Follow me. Know that due to security reasons, some participants might be in the same hall we are going to. Cool. Michael nodded his head, stood up, and followed Aishin. The two of them walked out of the room and walked along a quiet corridor for a short while. Once they were at the end, they pushed open a door by the side, entering the hall that looked the exact replica of the one they came from. Everything looked the same except there were some people in the room. One of the groups in the hall was Jennifer's group. The soul refining stage guards surrounded her while she was gracefully enjoying her cup of tea. His gaze rotated again until it stopped on a handsome young man conversing with a few young alchemists. He was adorned in emerald green robes with many shiny stones inlaid within. His white hair flew naturally over his shoulder. Among all the youngsters in the room, only he and Jennifer had a striking look to draw Michael's attention. Visit. For the best-known experience hearing the sound of the door opening, everyone in the hall who was whispering privately ceased their conversations. Instead, their gaze turned toward the door. When they saw Michael enter, they were all momentarily stunned by his dashing look because only Michael was dressed in full black and had physique like no one else in the room. For a few moments, Jennifer stared at him without batting an eye. However, she quickly regained her composure and moved her gaze away from him. While following Aishin, Michael could sense the young man's gaze on him. By the way, the young man creased his brows when he entered the hall. Michael guessed he might be Gabriel's successor, Leylon Icarus. Chapter 496, The Number 1 Alchemist. Took you long enough, Aishin. As soon as Michael and Aishin came to a table containing apparatus setup and many alchemy ingredients, a cheery voice resounded in the hall. Following the voice, everyone, including Michael, turned around to see a tall old man with full long white hair and a beard strolling towards them. His golden robes swept the floor beneath him as he approached Aishin and Michael with a wide grin on his lively face. Ghost. This is the deputy chairman of the guild. Alred Sterling Adavin introduced the old man to Ghost. Michael moved his eyes slightly to see Jennifer standing instead of sitting on the couch. Deputy Chairman Alred. Michael shook his hands, while some of the ignorant youngsters, not knowing the number 1 alchemist in the Elon and Azair, gawked at Michael bewildered. One of those who had no idea about Michael was Jennifer. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ghost. Michael's words caused a quiet commotion among the youngsters. Even Jennifer raised her brows. Then, instead of standing still, she slowly walked toward Michael, but not close enough to get the Grandmaster's attention. Likewise, Deputy Chairman Alred. Grandmaster Alred would do just fine. Alred shook Michael's hands with a smile. Then, their focus turned to the table behind Michael. "Everyone, please gather around us." Adovan waved at the youngsters. Then, in a few blinks of an eye, all the youngsters and their guards formed a circle around the table. Michael guessed what was about to happen and snickered inside, looking at the unfairness. So the rich and powerful would get an opportunity to see him refine pills and potions closely while the rest wait in line outside. This was so unfair. Still, Michael didn't utter anything. Compared to the unfairness, the badass points he was about to receive alleviated his mood. "Has Grandmaster Aishin explained why we are doing this, Ghost?" asked Alred as Michael nodded. "Although it's a rule, we put together something special just to witness your heaven-defying talent. Think of it as a tutelage for old bones like us. Best source of knowledge is experience, Grandmasters. So you two are full of knowledge whom I can learn many new things from." Michael chose to be humble because if he learned one thing from Mazarorth, it was never to underestimate anyone. Professor Lane taught him that lesson by outsmarting him every step of the way. Besides, having a system didn't mean he had to be an arrogant young master. "You're calling us old, aren't you?" Aishin's words made everyone burst into laughter. Everyone laughed and made the atmosphere cheery and lively except for one. It was the young man who eyed Michael with some kind of malicious intent. But Michael completely ignored him. Me for extra chapters. It does look cool and easy, but the scars on my body will tell you another story. Michael continued to throw in the ingredients while talking to them, which surprised everyone even more. Hence, he received more and more badass points. "It took me years of practice and lots of healing potions. If you have a ton of healing potions and desire to get burned over and over again, you can definitely use this method." The two grandmasters stared at him with palace faces. They couldn't believe he was extracting the essence while talking to them. Aishin even took a couple of steps back, fearing the fire would explode. However, nothing happened as Aishin feared. Instead, Michael continued to extract the essence, forming colorful beads above the green flames. "Grandmasters, the vials, please?" Michael asked, bringing the two grandmasters out of shock. 3 vials, yet again Michael stunned them. The two old men could not even keep the calm smile on their faces anymore. On the other hand, Jennifer was staring at Michael without batting an eye. She was completely fixated on his grace and technique of brewing the potion. Until now, she thought her teacher, Alred, was the most talented. But, after seeing Alred acting like a student in front of Michael, she learned how wrong she is. Already held 2 vials while Aishin had one waiting for Michael to finish combining the essence beads into a huge blob of potion. Then, with a slow, graceful movement of his hand, Michael split the maroon clump into 3 and sent each clump flying into a vial. "That's how you brew 90% pure tonic of intellect." Michael cracked his neck left and right as the green orb of fire vanished into thin air. In front of him, the grandmasters held the 3 vials with the sparkling maroon potion. Their bodies were rigid as though they were petrified. "My lord, Tiriana has departed from the warship and heading to Adrizel." Just as everyone was murmuring in shock, Michael heard Azazel's voice in his head. The next day, there were no clouds in the blue sky as far as the eye could see. The sunlight was warm yet not overbearing. The occasional breeze that brushed past carried away the noise within the city, refreshing everyone on the streets. Today was the first day of the alchemy competition. The first rays of sunlight broke through the boundary of the land and shone upon the city streets filled with alchemists in green robes like ants leaving their nests. Considering the alchemists believed green robes gave them better control over the fire, and today was a big day, they all wore emerald green robes. From the aerial view, the streets looked like they were painted green. Although their paths differed, their final destination was the giant cauldron in the city's center. Today, all the shops within Akshor City opened much earlier than usual. Countless people climbed out of their warm beds, stood at the door, and looked at the large group of alchemists bustling through the streets. Typically, seeing a large group of any of the specializations was rare. To alchemy, the Alchemist Guild competition was such an event that brought all the alchemists under one roof. The people didn't miss experiencing such a rare event. On this special day, Noah woke up very early. Before leaving the bed, he sat cross-legged to meditate for an hour. Only after he calmed down his nerves, collected his thoughts, and conversed telepathically with his mentor, he slowly opened his eyes. Turning his head to the side, he saw Alicia curling on the bed next to Norvin. "Good morning, Alicia." He bent down to gently kiss her on the forehead and then rubbed Norvin's head to wake him up. "What the hell is taking you so long?" Norvin banged the door sitting atop Noah's shoulder. Since Alicia was changing, they waited for almost an hour outside the room. 5 minutes? Alicia's cold voice came from inside as Norvin rolled his eyes. "That's what you said 30 minutes ago." This time, they got no response from Alicia. Since they obviously have to wait outside for another 30 minutes, Norvin turned his gaze towards Noah, who remained calm, leaning on the wall. Just like Michael, Noah didn't believe green robes would give them better control over fire. Thus, he was in his usual white dress. "Where is the competition taking place again?" asked Norvin. "In the Aqua Arena adjacent to the guild." The guild had no place to hold the thousands of spectators and competitors. So every time they'd host the competition in the Aqua Arena. "Let's go." Finally, Alicia opened the door, revealing her long white dress matching Noah's robes. She looked gorgeous even with the mask changing her natural face. Noah locked his arms with her and walked out of the inn with two goals: save the guild leader and win the competition. Chapter 497. The 6-star alchemist Hendrix Gardner, thinking about having thousands of people raising their flames and refining pills and potions on the same platform simultaneously, Noah couldn't help feeling a little excited. That spectacular manner was likely to be extremely thrilling. As they flew above the crowd for a few moments, the Aqua Arena that Aishan had mentioned early had gradually appeared in their sight. Noah raised his gaze at the cauldron-like building in the distance. Behind the guild building, Noah could vaguely notice the colossal arena. Currently, there were fully armed Aqua clan soldiers stationed outside the building to maintain order. The green-robed crowd flooded towards the Alchemist Guild building, and it was evident to Noah that the competition had gathered thousands of alchemists from all over the world. The kingdom would receive a huge blow if a riot were to occur. Therefore, the royal family of Adrizel and the guild were extremely cautious regarding maintaining order. Unfortunately, the crowd caused finding the assassin or how Gabriel planned to assassinate the guild leader Hendrix Gardner. There were inspectors from the Alchemist Guild stationed at the entrance. Only guild members and the participants were allowed to enter from this entrance while the spectators entered the arena through the west side entrance. "Good luck, Noah." Alicia pecked Noah on the cheek before flying towards the west entrance with Norvin. After Alicia left, Noah squeezed through the participants in the guild hall and finally entered the arena adjacent to the guild. Finally, Noah breathed a sigh of relief as the arena had enough space to accommodate all the participants without squeezing them together. Standing at the entrance, Noah looked at the large arena built with an aquatic blue marble to the point that he felt like he was standing inside an ocean. He could not help but shake his head and praise. The arena was round oval, with countless seats symmetrically like shark teeth. Opposite the audience seats, VIP seats were decorated lavishly, specially catered for the judges and special guests. As his gaze swept over the incomparably large open ground, Noah discovered that thousands of jade square tables scattered neatly, resembling a green rock military unit standing still. Currently, countless alchemists were participating in the competition, quietly seated cross-legged on a stone chair behind the jade tables within the open ground. But, as time flowed, moving closer to the beginning of the competition, more and more alchemists swarmed into the arena. They took seats randomly since no table number or token was allocating specific tables for a particular participant. Noah Winston. Noah heard a familiar voice, and the voice immediately made Noah smile. "Grandmaster Aishan." Noah turned around to see Grandmaster Aishan walking toward him. "How is my favorite young man?" Aishan embraced Noah in a tight hug. "Doing wonderful, Uncle?" Sorry. Noah cleared his throat, realizing they were not alone. "Grandmaster Aishan." "I am glad to hear that." Aishan patted Noah's shoulder. Then, Aishan ascended to the air, taking Noah with him. "Let's go to the VIP seats first." There is still some time until the start of the competition. I want you to meet some important people. It might help you do your other thing. Aishin winked at Noah as Noah nodded at him. Aishin was the one who tipped Noah about the assassination plot. Because of Gabriel's connection in and out of the guild, Aishin couldn't trust anyone except Noah. Gabriel hasn't arrived yet, but you need to be careful about the new guy. I can't quite put my fingers in it, but he gives me chills. Aishin's face turned serious after they left the ground and ascended to the air above. Before Noah could ask who that man was, they reached the VIP seating, where Noah saw Alred and an old man with brown hair and a few stripes of gray hair leisurely sitting on the chair in the middle. He wore a purple robe with golden engravings and seemed to meditate with closed eyes. That is the guild leader Hendrix Gardner, a 6-star alchemist. Before Gabriel became who he is today, Lord Hendrix had given him a lot of care. It would not be an overstatement to say that he was the mentor of Gabriel. Aishin softly said, "Oh?" Noah's eyebrows twitched slightly. He had only heard about Hendrix, but this was the first time he had seen the man. The old man with tired eyes appeared to have sensed the gazes focused on him and suddenly turned his head around. He turned his seemingly perplexed gaze toward Noah's side. A friendly smile appeared on the dried skin on his face. Seeing that the old man had turned his head over, Aishin hurriedly bowed and greeted, after which they slowly walked to the front row. "Lord Hendrix Gardner, how was your journey to Adrisel?" The old man slowly opened his eyes, turning his head to look at Aishin. "It's Aishin, right? You've reached the 5-star level. Your progress is not bad. Not bad at all." Hendrix swept his turbid gaze at the two of them and laughed softly. "It's all because of Lord Hendrix's teachings the last time around," Aishin respectively said. "All that I can speak about is some of my personal experience. The most important thing is depending on yourselves." Hendrix Gardner smiled, shaking his head. He suddenly turned his gaze toward Noah behind Aishin. "Who is this young man, Aishin? Your disciple?" With a friendly smile, Hendrix asked Aishin. "Lord Hendrix, this young man is Noah Winston. He is the youngest Guardian Captain." Adavin introduced Noah to Hendrix as Noah bowed slightly to show his respect to the 6-star alchemist before him. "Not only the youngest Guardian Captain, but also a talented alchemist. I can see the talent in your eyes." Hendrix Gardner's voice was neither hurried nor slow. Although it was a little hoarse, it had a certain magical-like property that did not allow others to interrupt his words. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Noah calmly smiled but did not continue to say anything on this topic. Hendrix Gardner smiled and stared at Noah. His gaze seemed to have a deeper meaning as he paused on that calm face for a while. "I wish you good luck, young man." "You will need it," Hendrix calmly said. But something told Noah his simple words contained wisdom and meaning behind. Does he know about the assassination plot on his life? Noah couldn't help asking himself after hearing Hendrix's words. "You should learn some aura-hiding spells, young man, if you ever plan to visit our, that is..." Hendrix continued with the same calm smile on his face. However, this time, his words were heavy as though he had sensed Noah's secret. "Don't tell me that he sensed the teacher's presence?" Noah blinked his eyes. There was a change in his heart as he muttered, "Teacher?" Noah telepathically called for his teacher. "Relax, he can't sense me. But be careful, I have a strange feeling about him." Noah heard Andreas' voice in his head. "Perhaps I have sensed wrongly," Hendrix said to himself. The sudden aura he felt or thought he felt wasn't around him anymore. The old man sighed in disappointment. Then, he leaned back against the chair, appearing a little absent-minded as he entered a trance while his memory played. Back then, when Hendrix Gardner was still young, he had coincidentally met a revenant of an old man in a dungeon he and his friends adventured. Because of Hendrix's thirst for knowledge and young blood, he was separated from his group, ended up meeting the revenant, and spent 3 days with the old man. During those 3 days, the old man taught him a few things and gave him a scroll containing alchemy knowledge. By borrowing what the old man had taught, the initially unknown Hendrix Gardner, an adventurer with a basic talent for alchemy, advanced step by step to his current stage. Only after reaching the 6-star level Hendrix had realized how terrifyingly talented the old revenant was when he was alive. Even though he and his fellow six-star alchemists in R were praised as the heavenly alchemists and worshipped by the world of alchemists, he knew none of them could hold a torch to the old man. Which was the reason Hendrix always remained humble despite his fame and stardom. The vague aura he sensed on Noah a moment ago was quite similar to the one that the old man had back then. It was the reason that Hendrix suddenly got lost in their thoughts. However, as Aishan was about to take his seat, a burst of old laughter was emitted from a passageway in the middle of the seats. I knew you would run to Lord Hendrix as fast as your old legs could. Hearing the laughter, everyone turned their heads around to take a look. When they saw a white-haired old man wearing golden robes walking towards Hendrix. The person who arrived at the stage was Alred, whom Noah had when he came to the Guardian Guild. Jennifer also followed closely behind. Today, she was wearing a pale green alchemist robe that was clearly specially tailored for her using the best materials. Her spacious sleeves had bright silk pulled around them to form a lotus shape. This gave her an elegance that came from nowhere. However, Noah clearly knew her character and understood that this young lady, who appeared quiet on the surface, was actually a quirky person. As his gaze swept past Jennifer, Noah discovered that beside her was a tall lady wearing a luxurious and brilliant dress. Compared to the cute and petite Jennifer, the lady was mature and had a nobility feel around her. When she saw Aishan and Noah, she just nodded to acknowledge their existence and then looked at the alchemists gathering down. There was an iciness and matured aura all over this lady. As her pretty eyes moved, a temptation naturally appeared. Noah's gaze swept past the two ladies and finally landed on Alred. He bowed and greeted with a smile, Grandmaster Alred. Alred, this young man is Noah, whom I have mentioned to you. His ability is extraordinary. Adavin told Alred and the ladies standing beside, pointing at Noah. Hearing Alred's evaluation, Jennifer by the side tooted, secretly muttering something. It was likely that she was not satisfied by these words of Alred. Nice to meet you, Master Noah. The hazel eyes of the lady stared at Noah. Then, she smiled. The instant she smiled, it surprised some noble family descendants around the VIP seats since Eve Voldegard was known to treat people coldly. Chapter 498 The Alchemy Competition has begun. Nice to meet you, Lady Eve. Noah smiled, slightly bowing his head to show her the respect she deserves. Once the group had greeted each other, they sat down in the front row of the VIP seat except Noah and Jennifer since they were both participants and they only came to the VIP seating due to their connections. Whether it was intentional or otherwise, Princess Eve ended up sitting beside an empty chair between Hendrix and her. Standing closer to Eve, the faint female body fragrance drifted from the side, causing him to become a little distracted. As the sun in the sky moved, the number of people in the VIP seats also increased. These people were mostly people of higher officials in the guild or people with connections. The audience seats opposite them had long been overly packed. The shouting aggregated into a torrent that shot to the horizon. A long while later, Noah suddenly sensed some movement in the seats around him. Only then did he frown and turn his head around to see the source of the commotion. Two lines of silver-armored soldiers escorted three people to the VIP seatings. Gabriel, Noah muttered as he looked at the tall, dashing man with striking golden hair walking towards them. The emerald-green robes couldn't hide the man's perfect body structure, which would raise any woman's heartbeat. With perfect jaw structure, small lips, and blue eyes, the man looked like a model out of a magazine. Edith walked behind Gabriel with Lillian Icarus, whom Ghost met during his test to become the judge. Lord Gabriel, many of the nobles stood up from their seats to show their respect. The man sat on the throne of the #1 alchemist of Elon and Azair for decades. Although Ghost proved he was better than Gabriel, the Alchemy King still had the respect and admiration of many nobles. Hence, even Aishan and Alred stood up from their seats to welcome him. Grandmaster Hendrix. Gabriel arrived before Hendrix and greeted him with a stoic face. Since Hendrix became who he is by learning from the old revenant, Hendrix never hesitated to share his knowledge with others. But despite learning so many things from Hendrix, Gabriel felt no gratitude towards him. Hendrix returned Gabriel's greet with a nod. "Hi!" Edith quietly gave a quick wave at Noah. If only Gabriel could assassinate Hendrix, he would be able to use his contacts to join the Heavenly Alchemist's ranks. With their resources and knowledge, it would be only a matter of time before he reaches the 6-star alchemist level. However, to reach his goals, Hendrix must die. That's Alchemy King Gabriel. Lord Gabriel. Hail the King! Hail the Alchemy King! Noah saw the alchemists and the crowd erupted into thunderous cheers. Compared to the Grandmasters and Hendrix, Gabriel's fame was on the next level thanks to his marketing strategies and promotions. Not a single one didn't know Gabriel and admired in the world of alchemy. The cheers he received were evident of his fame. Gabriel turned to look at the cheering crowd and gracefully waved his hand while Leylon Icarus seemed extremely haughty seeing his teacher enjoying such fathomless fame and cheers from the crowd. He felt as though the crowd is cheering for him. Jennifer and Eve quietly waited patiently for Gabriel to take his seat. While the crowd was raving for Gabriel, a golden trail appeared in the sky above. They all looked up to see a figure completely dressed in black slowly descending towards the VIP seatings. Ghost. Edith's heart skipped a beat when she saw Michael. His long black coat fluttered in the wind as he kept his hands casually inside the pant pockets. After Michael appeared, everyone in the VIP seatings turned their gazes from Gabriel to Michael. Meanwhile, the cheering didn't die down but gradually sounded less loud than a few moments ago. Of course, unlike Gabriel, Michael didn't pay a bunch of people to kickstart the cheering. If Michael wished to get thunderous cheers, he could have simply brought the entire river town along with the Sunrise disciples. Still, little by little, some of the people who were present during the tournament recognized Michael and spread his name among the crowd. Under the thunderous cheers for Gabriel, Michael calmly landed on the VIP stage beside Noah. Ghost! Noah greeted Ghost with a nod. Despite their differences in morals, Noah respected Ghost. As an alchemist training under Andreas, Noah knew how difficult it is to become a higher-star alchemist. Moreover, Ghost was an orphan, so unlike him, he didn't have the resources Noah had. Still, Ghost managed to become a 5-star alchemist, and not only that, he even managed to surpass him in cultivation. However, if Noah wanted to earn money and focused on solely getting stronger, he would have equalized Ghost. Noah had responsibilities to bring balance to the world as well as prepare for the greater war with the Dark Lord. Noah. Michael also did the same and saw the familiar and unfamiliar faces staring at him. Gabriel stopped waving as he turned his gaze to the young man who dethroned him. To be honest, Gabriel couldn't believe his eyes. How the hell did he reach the 5-star level at such a young age? That was the question that immediately emerged in his mind. You're Ghost. Hendrix's tired eye became lively as he stood up from his seat, which surprised everyone on the stage. Before Ghost could greet anyone on the stage, Hendrix himself extended his hand. Lord Hendrix. It's a pleasure to meet you. Michael firmly shook his hand. The pleasure is all mine to see such a talented young man. Hendrix squeezed his arm before letting it go. Grandmaster Ashen, Grandmaster Alred. After greeting Hendrix, Michael greeted Alred and Ashen with a smile, completely ignoring the crowd cheering for Gabriel. Lord Gabriel, I'm honored to meet you. You're an inspiration. For a moment, Gabriel was stunned. He thought Ghost would act arrogant or haughty. But, on the contrary, Ghost greeted him with full of respect and admiration. One couldn't blame Gabriel for thinking like that. He didn't surpass Hendrix. Yet when he achieved fame and stardom, he never respected Hendrix. The longest conversation Gabriel had with Hendrix after Hendrix left Elon was how is everything in R. So Gabriel naturally thought Ghost would be arrogant. He even formed a few quotes to mock Ghost in case he acted arrogantly. Yet Ghost completely surprised him by greeting him with respect. His gesture not only surprised Gabriel but everyone on the stage except Edith. To her, it looked like the wolf greeting a sheep. I am to many, Gabriel said proudly, revealing a slight grin that oozed arrogance. Since everyone arrived at the stage, the judges and Eve took the front row while the nobles and the elders took the seats in the back. On the front row, Grandmaster Ashen, Grandmaster Alred, Gabriel, Hendrix, Ghost, and Eve sat respectively from left to right. As time gradually flowed, the time for the start of the alchemy competition slowly arrived under tens of thousands of gazes. Ding! When a clear bell rang out on the plaza, the buzzing sound of the crowd murmuring and cheering that had shot to the sky suddenly became quiet. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Hearing the bell ringing in his ears, Hendrix Gardner quivered slightly and stood up. Then he slowly walked to the very front of the VIP stage. His gaze watched the thousands of alchemists seated behind the jade tables below. At this moment, over 2,000 alchemists lifted their heads and threw respectful gazes toward Hendrix, who stood atop the world of alchemy with his talents. As the leader of the Alchemist Guild, I pronounce that the 16th alchemy competition has begun. The entire ground boiled as the crowd let out a thunderous roar in excitement. Hendrix waited until the crowd became silent again. Only then did he softly say, "Now, I would like competitors to settle before a jade table." Although the arena was currently bustling about to the point that the ring of the bell could hardly be heard, Hendrix's voice managed to still sound in everyone's ears, thanks to Hendrix's fusion stage cultivation level. Hearing Hendrix's words, those alchemists who haven't settled before a table quickly found one. Some alchemists in the VIP seats immediately stood up. There, the alchemists mainly were groomed by or roped into some of the more powerful groups. Due to having a powerhouse to support them, the tier of these alchemists was slightly higher as a whole compared to those free alchemists. Leylon, Jennifer, Noah, you three should also get down and join them, since we're very much excited to see you three compete against each other. The tables over there belong to the three of you. Asian pointed at the three jade tables in the very center of the arena. Those 3 seats will make you the focus of the crowd's attention. Following Asian, Alred spoke, snapping his fingers. As soon as he snapped, the 3 tables assigned to Noah, Jennifer, and Leylon got elevated a foot higher from the ground, making the 3 tables the focus of everyone. Good luck! Edith gave a thumbs up before Noah followed behind Leylon and Jennifer. While the 3 were preparing to leave the VIP stage, Michael leaned back on his chair, focusing on Arya, who was on her way to post a quest on the Adventure Guild. Among the 3, Leylon looked a little excited on top of being proud. Jennifer was curious and eager, while Noah had a calm look on his face as usual. You youngsters won't have any fun memories to recall in the future unless you do some rash and arrogant things, Hendrix said with a smile to the youngsters on the stage. That's one of the worst pieces of advice I've heard. Michael laughed inside but put on a calm face showing no emotions. Guild leader is right. Ha 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 ha. Leylon laughed as he had heard something so funny. He laughed proudly for no reason. The few of you, please proceed down. Alred gestured at them to get down. The 2 of you, I will go first. Leylon, who was laughing like a maniac, pressed the ground lightly, and his body charged to the edge of the high platform. He glanced at the huge open ground below. Then he leaped, diving forward, and creating countless gasps among the spectators as well as the alchemists down. Arch steps. His body swiftly descended, and just as he was about to reach the ground, he cast a spell. As soon as he cast the spell, giant purplish steps made of sparkling arch energy materialized in mid-air, connecting the ground. Using the steps, he landed on the ground without any injury. After which, he swiftly walked up to the arena's middle spot under the spectators' stunned gazes with a smug smile. He really likes to show off, huh? But does he think only he knows how to jump? Eyeing Leylon, who had received attention from everyone by directly leaping down, Jennifer rolled her eyes, smacking her lips together. Her lovely body leaped forward and also shot off of the high platform. Like a falling leaf, her body gently and elegantly descended. Her beautiful posture was like that of a goddess. Whoa! This beautiful action of Jennifer had undoubtedly stirred more hearts than Leylon's earlier performance. But her beauty and grace caused shocking gasps from the VIP seats and loud roars from the audience seats. Look at that! You taught her something other than alchemy. Good for you, Grandmaster Alred. Asian playfully punched Alred on the shoulder and joked, Beauty comes with great opportunities and dangers. Therefore, one should always be prepared to fend off the predators. Hendricks calmly spoke. His words contained wisdom which Michael agreed with completely. Young man, why don't you leap down as well? After seeing Jennifer and Leylon making such a grand entrance, Aishan probed Noah to do the same as the previous two. I think I will walk down, Noah smiled, shaking his head. But, instead of jumping down, Noah chose to walk down the stairs. Chapter 499. The first round. Noah quietly stood behind the jade table and looked at ingredients neatly placed on the table alongside a golden paper. A square glass of emerald stone was also embedded at the front of the table with a weak green-red light flickering. As Noah picked up the thin paper and looked at it, he realized it was actually a formula for a pill. However, the formula was written with so many complex, unnecessary steps. It would be near impossible to concoct the pill following the formula within the given time. Failure would be inevitable if an alchemist failed to decode the formula and simplify the steps. Failure would be inevitable. Another hurdle for the participants was the number of ingredients on the table. Just like Olivia informed Michael, the guild gave the participants 2 batches of ingredients, which meant each participant only had 2 chances. If the medicinal ingredients were completely exhausted and the participant concocted no pill, then the participant would be eliminated from the competition. How long will it take for you to concoct the pill? Eve asked Michael sitting beside him. Quickly, all the nobles focused on Michael to hear his answer. 45 seconds. Everyone, including Hendricks, was surprised by Michael's answer. Hendricks was a 6-star alchemist who could achieve 95% purity, but even for him it would take at least a minute to concoct the pill. So naturally the others would take longer. That's a bit unrealistic, don't you think? Alred leaned forward a bit and asked Michael. It's not actually Grandmaster Alred. The reason why I can concoct the pill quicker is my method of directly refining ingredients in the fire instead of using the cauldron. It cuts the time approximately by half. So it's dangerous and one should not use that method. There is a reason that method went extinct. Gabriel expressed his discontent. But Michael responded with a smile. Of course, I wouldn't teach this method to someone else. It's dangerous. Then why do you do it? Eve curiously asked Michael as he turned to look at her stoic, angelic face. What can I say? I like thrills. His answer surprisingly made Eve gently smile. The nobles who saw her smile were stunned beyond words. The reason, however, is that Eve felt no creepy vibes from Michael and Noah as she felt from the others. They were sitting side by side, but he never even touched her finger. Michael always maintained eye contact while talking to her and kept his distance as a gentleman should. Moreover, he didn't even try to make conversation with her. Everything made Eve see him in a slightly good light. No wonder teacher said the competition won't be easy. Noah held the thin piece of paper and smiled bitterly, shaking his head. He then lifted his head and glanced in all directions, only to realize confusion on many of the alchemists' faces. Turning his head to the side, he eyed Jennifer and Leylon on his left and right. Unlike the rest, both of them appeared much calmer. However, they were still both frowning slightly as they found some errors with the formula recorded on the thin paper. Noah took a deep breath and focused on the thin piece of paper in his hand. Since Noah had neither competed in an alchemy competition nor concocted a pill in front of thousands of people, Noah's heart and mind felt a bit uneasy. While Noah was focused on the formula, Leylon turned over to Noah. He saw the bitter smile on the former's face that had yet to disappear and could not help but softly give a cold laugh. You should have stayed in your guild. Since you didn't, you're gonna embarrass yourself in front of Eve. Fool, having studied under Gabriel since he was little, Leylon had great confidence in himself. So, naturally, he thought he would triumph over the rest and have the qualification to marry either one of the Valdegard daughters. On the enormous open ground, all the competitors held the thin paper. Each displayed a different expression as they gazed at the paper. The entire plaza was totally silent. The silence haunted the arena for 5 minutes until a clear bell sounded suddenly out of nowhere. Hearing the bell ring, all the participants immediately halted what they were doing. Then, following the bell ringing, Hendricks, whose eyes were closed, finally opened them. I hope you've studied the formula and found the errors. If there are any, let there be an hourglass. As Hendrix's voice swept across the arena, an ethereal hourglass materialized in the sky above the alchemists. You have 30 minutes to concoct the pill with at least 20% purity. After that, you shall place the pill you concocted on the mirror on your table. The mirror will let out a green light if your pill has met the requirements. Otherwise red, which will indicate that you've been eliminated. Hendrix paused for a moment, letting the alchemists digest everything he had just told them. Do you all understand? Hendrix asked with a smile. Yes, the alchemists roared, shaking the arena. Hendrix slowly lifted his palm as he smiled. The first round of the examination shall now begin. His voice echoed through the arena, and the moment he waved his palm, the ethereal hourglass turned upside down as the golden sands slowly rained from one end to another. As soon as the timing began, the alchemist flicked their wrists, taking out their cauldron from their space ring. Shouldn't we have given them all the same cauldron? Michael asked the other judges. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. I think so too. Eve nodded. Luck is a part of alchemy, young man. One has to be lucky to achieve great success in alchemy. For a moment, Michael was confused about the connection between the question he asked and the answer he received from Hendrix. In simple words, if you aren't lucky to get a great cauldron or born into a wealthy family, you won't get too far. Alred chuckled. Not everyone has a death wish to refine pills directly and potions like you, Ghost. Once again, Michael received a scornful response from Gabriel. However, if Michael wished, he could kill Gabriel in a flash, since Gabriel was at the core strengthening stage. At the same time, he reached soul refining stage level 3 after killing King Bridia's men. Luckily for Gabriel, Michael wasn't here to kill him, at least not yet. Meanwhile, Noah quietly stood behind the jade table. With a flick of his wrist, Noah summoned his cauldron from the space ring. It was a pearl-white cauldron with 3 handles resembling dragons. There were numerous undisguisable writings engraved on the outside as well as inside. Unlike the rest, Noah did not immediately summon his flame and start the refinement. Instead, he quietly held the paper and studied the formula once again. As Andreas taught him, preparation was crucial for success. Considering he only had 2 chances, negligence wasn't an option. The guild required one to refine a pill called Burn Healer. As the name suggests, it was a kind of medicinal pill used to treat wounds caused by fire and acid. Usually, these pills were used by those who couldn't afford a healing potion and were fairly cheap. In an alchemy store, they wouldn't sell the pill for more than 50 to 100 gold coins depending on its purity. Refining the pill required a total of 5 ingredients. Although the pill was cheap, the refining process was complex and needed an alchemist to possess good control over their alchemy fire and knowledge of each ingredient. Since Noah brewed his own healing potion, he was unfamiliar with the process of making a burn healer. Michael silently watched Noah studying the parchment without starting to refine the ingredients. On the other hand, Jennifer and Leylon had already conjured the flames and let the fire surround the cauldron. Michael failed to see a different color flame other than emerald green. Why did everyone have green flames by default? It's because fire created by pure arch energy burns green. Only by absorbing a primordial flame could one change the flame color produced by the arch energy. Hence, Michael had black flames, Rowena had icy blue flames, and Noah possessed bright blue fire. Regardless of their character, these two are really talented, Noah said to himself. However, no matter how he counted, Noah had only studied alchemy for 4 years, give or take. Therefore, on certain aspects, Noah could not catch up with Jennifer and Leylon, who their teachers groomed for decades. After all, no matter how talented one is or whom one learned from, it would be impossible to catch up decades of experience in such a short time unless they had a system like Michael, of course. Yet what even Michael failed to grasp was that he may have learned the book of alchemy through the system. Still, his innate talent for manipulating darkness and control over the fire made him reach the point he was at the moment. For a day, Michael refined hundreds of pills and potions. He had never slacked off despite having a system. So Ghost, can I call you Ghost? Eve looked at Michael. I insist. Michael said with his usual alluring smile that made Eve's heart skip a beat. Do you think you can give some pointers to my sister? She smiled. No one with a brain and eyes would say no to such an angelic woman, and Michael wasn't an exception. But, of course, it was not because of her beauty but because of her family background. He needed some connections in R, and making friends with Eve didn't seem like a bad idea. Of course, just tell me. Where do you want me to meet you? At this moment, over 10 minutes had elapsed since the start of the examination. Red lights were already flickering off and on during these short 10 minutes within the arena. After the red light flickered, those alchemists who had failed could only leave the arena with many regrets. They should have rushed like that. Alred commented about the alchemists leaving the arena after their pills failed to meet the requirements. Noah indifferently glanced at an alchemist before him, who kept his head down as he walked out of the arena with a face on the verge of crying. Once again, Noah ignored the commotion to focus on refining. Let's begin! Noah cracked his knuckles as he finally decided to conjure his flames. Under thousands of gazes, Noah flicked his wrist as a bright blue flame materialized above his hand, dancing like a lady. A primordial flame. Michael immediately felt the familiar energy waves radiating from the fire above Noah's hands. It was weaker than the dark flames but still had off-the-chart energy radiations like the dark flames. Chapter 500 Noah's Struggle and Victory. Wow. Blue flame? Seeing the bright blue flame he had conjured, waves of exclamation immediately sounded throughout the arena. Since every alchemist, including Leylon and Jennifer, had emerald green fires, Noah's bright blue flame became the center of attention in the arena. Many spectators gasped in shock as they stared at the dancing blue fire without batting an eye. Primordial flame? Eyeing the cluster of blue flame hovering above Noah's palm, Hendrix was astonished. This young man has godly luck to possess a primordial flame. The sky's the limit for him. That's my friend Noah Winston, ya sons of bitches. A childish voice echoed through the arena from the spectators. Michael looked in the direction to see the golden babaroo bouncing up and down atop Alicia's shoulder. When Alicia saw Michael's gaze landing on her, her eyes flickered, radiating immense killing intent. However, Michael turned his gaze away from her, completely ignoring her. As far as he was concerned, she was not even worth fighting. With her core formation cultivation level, killing him would only be possible in her dreams and imaginations. The blue flame danced around lively on Noah's palm like a fairy. A moment later, Noah waved his palm gently. The blue flame was shot out from his palm, surrounding the cauldron. The primordial flame swiftly raised the temperature of the icy cold cauldron as the pearl-white surface slowly turned bright orange. Noak kept his palm pointed at the cauldron until the orange glow turned bright blue. At the moment, the cauldron looked as though it was carved out of a giant sapphire stone. Under the control of Noah, the blue flame suppressed its temperature obediently. It did not pose the slightest resistance. After the fire swirled around the cauldron for a few more minutes, Noah slowly took a red claw-like ingredient from the table and dropped it in the cauldron. Immediately, a puff of green mist shot out from the cauldron as Noah placed another ingredient into the cauldron. His movements were slow and steady as a single misstep could result in the cauldron exploding in his face. Each time Noah dropped an ingredient into the cauldron, a green puff of mist shot out from within. To refine a pill or a potion, the ingredients must be purified to a certain degree. Sometimes, even if the purity was just a tad bit less, it could result in the refining process failing. Hence, an alchemist must know the properties of an ingredient and when to take it out from the fire. Otherwise, the pill or potion would have less purity or completely dissolve after coming out of the fire. Fortunately, Noah possessed the needed knowledge about the ingredients in the formula. Thus, no explosion had happened yet. So he's training him to fight me more than alchemy, Michael thought when he noticed Noah's slow refining skills. Michael felt as though he was watching a sloth refining a pill. It had been 15 minutes, still Noah didn't even extract the essence from the ingredients. While extracting the essence, Noah glanced at his two sides to notice Jennifer and Leylon had similar serious faces as him. However, their movements did not show any signs of being flustered. They may look serious but did not sweat like most alchemists in the arena. Both Leylon and Jennifer had everything under control. Bang! Just as Noah withdrew his gaze, a cauldron on a jade not far away exploded into pieces. However, a golden light appeared around the table, sucking the fire before it could harm the alchemist. Following the cauldron explosion, the jade mirror placed within the table let out bright red light, signifying the elimination. Although the golden light saved the alchemist, unfortunately, it didn't save his hair. The man's face had streaks of ash as he stood there foolishly watching the flickering red light with a stunned look on his face. A long while later, he finally cursed out loud before leaving the platform. As the man walked past Noah, Noah was surprised because he had met him before. When Noah met the man, he was a 3-star alchemist in Kingdom Dreidel. A pity. Noah laughed somewhat gloatingly in his heart. He then threw aside the small interlude and continued to extract the essence from the ingredients one at a time. While Noah was extracting the essence, Michael talked to Eve, getting an idea about what was going on in R, especially in Nagaland. As time slowly flowed by, the jade mirrors repeatedly flashed red lights in the arena. Whenever the red light flickered, one left the arena with either a sad or a mad face. While the test was quite difficult, one could say that alchemists who participated in the competition were people with great skills. Apart from the eliminated alchemists, many silently continued to refine the pill so they could move to the next round. After nearly half of the sand within that ghostly hourglass had fallen, Noah finally formed colorful beads of essence above the cauldron. Even though Noah refined the pill slower than Michael expected, he did not waste any ingredients. The next thing was to merge the colorful beads into a ball of essence and turn them into the burn healer pill. Compared to the extracting part, combining was the trickiest and required absolute focus. A slight deviation in focus would result in failure, and Noah would have to start from scratch again. Knowing the last step's importance, Noah closed his eyes for a moment, canceling all the noises around him. Then he opened his eyes with his mind completely focused on the essence beads. Finally, he exhaled and pulled his hands together as the essence beads floating in the air slowly moved towards each other. The blue flames gradually faded away as Noah pulled the beads closer and closer to each other. He felt the beads resisting as the same poles of magnets. It took a little bit of raw strength for Noah to merge them. Nonetheless, Noah showed no signs of struggle. On the contrary, he looked just as calm as ever. "Why is he taking so long?" Eve asked Michael. After talking for some time, Eve felt comfortable with Michael. "Hence," she whispered to Michael, slightly leaning towards him, "he's trying to merge all the beads at one go, instead one by one like the others," Michael explained to Eve. He had to say, she became a good friend in such a short amount of time. When he travels to R, Eve would definitely welcome him with open arms, not literally of course. With her help, he could expand his business empire and sect to R. But, for now, he focused on 2 things, assassinating Tenulia for Peyton and judging the competition. "He is a fool to try that," Gabriel snickered. "It's way too early for us to judge him, Lord Gabriel." Adavin defended Noah as Edith frowned from behind. Then, she closed her eyes and began to pray for Noah silently. The sand within the enormous hourglass swiftly scattered down. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Ding. Leylon, who struggled to merge the last bead, finally succeeded. As soon as the beads became one orb of purple liquid, Leylon once again conjured the emerald green flames and kept the orb above the flame for it to harden into a pill. Gradually, the purple ball shrunk until it became the size of a tablet. Additionally, the pill radiated a bright glow, unlike the pills concocted by the other alchemists. "That's how you do it." The pride on his face was difficult to hide as he banged the table loud enough for everyone to lose their focus for a moment. Michael frowned, looking at his actions. But since the other judges remained silent, he didn't raise any concern. "Done." Jennifer raised her voice and revealed the purple people looking the same as Leyland's pill to the spectators. "Good," Eve murmured. In her voice, Michael could sense the joy and pride. "Time is almost up. Alred stared at Noah in the center spot, who was still yet to merge the beads. On the other hand, Aishan looked at the ghostly sand in the hourglass that had almost completely fallen. His hand abruptly tightened. Within the large arena, countless gazes landed in the middle where Noah was. They then eyed the sand in the hourglass that was splashing down. All of the spectators wanted to know if Noah, who stood in the center, attracting the most attention, would be able to complete the test. "What do you think, Ghost?" Eve asked curiously Michael, who was still looking at Noah with a calm face. Unlike the rest, Michael was sure Noah would finish the pill and surprise everyone with his purity level. "He will surprise everyone," Michael said, calming Edith's nerves. The very little sand within the hourglass quietly descended. Then, at the very last moment, the last piece of sand rolled down. A pitiful sound came from the audience and the VIP seats. The blue flames suddenly shot out of Noah's hand and enveloped the beads. As soon as the blue flames disappeared, a round pill flew out at the very last moment, radiating dazzling bright light. Noah's pill glowed brighter compared to Leyland's and Jennifer's. The instant the pill landed on his palm, the little remaining sand finally fell. Hundreds of red lights in the arena, behind those alchemists who had still not finished refining the pill, lit up. Disappointedly looking at the flashing red light, those alchemists smiled bitterly and took back their respective cauldrons. Then, with disappointed looks, they exited the square. Standing behind the jade table, Noah looked at the contestants leaving the arena one after another. This was just the first round of the competition, yet 1/3 of the participants had been eliminated unexpectedly. He let out a sigh as he thought about the difficulty of the competition. Playing with the pill in his hand, Noah turned his head to the nearby Leyland, whose face was full of bright smiles. Despite having less brighter pill than Noah, Leyland seemed arrogant and proud because he finished first. He looked at Noah with his pill steadily grasped in his hand, and said a smile. "You truly have good luck. Even with the primordial flame, you only managed to refine the pill at the last moment." However, Noah just responded to Leyland with a calm smile. "It's not so important who starts the game but who finishes it." In this grand competition, attended by countless outstanding alchemists, refining with the fastest speed in an undeniable skill, Leyland laughed. He was unwilling to let Noah's higher purity pill outshine his achievements. "If you say so," Noah shrugged as he no longer wished to quarrel with Leyland. Instead, he turned his head toward Jennifer and smiled. Then, looking up at the VIP seats, he saw Hendrix waiting for his turn to speak. Sigh in the VIP seats. Aishan heavily exhaled. He used his sleeves to wipe off the cold sweat on his forehead. Why does this brat have to be so dramatic every time? Chapter 501 Demonstration. Hendrix stood at a spot on the front of the platform. He looked down from the top and watched the entire open ground. His gaze swept across the arena, looking at the place where 1/3 of the competitors had been eliminated. Congratulations to all of you who are still standing. You have more or less successfully passed the test for the first round. However, the round is not over, Hendrix said with a smile. Alchemy is a complex art. Some alchemists may have concocted a pill that might look like a high-purity pill. However, they might not have the desired healing properties. Hence, we will check whether the pill has achieved the required level. The slightly hoarse voice of Hendrix slowly sounded in everyone's ears. Now, can all the competitors please search for a green-colored button located at the bottom left corner of your jade table? Hearing this, Noah looked at the table until his gaze finally stopped at the bottom left corner, which was not very noticeable. He was somewhat stunned to see a few different colored small buttons scattered there. His finger followed the instructions and stopped on the green button before pressing it down gently. As he pressed the button, the bright, clean rock table suddenly trembled slightly. On its surface, a slate was slowly protruding out. Once it was raised by around half a foot, it sank slightly and finally revealed a small hole. Place the pill you have refined into the hole in the table. If you have achieved the requirement, a green light will flash on the jade mirror and red if your pill has failed to meet the requirements. In case of red light, you will be eliminated from the competition, and I request the alchemists to leave the premises in a peaceful manner. Hendrix paused for a moment to let everything he said sink into their heads. Additionally, the brighter the green light, the higher the purity of the pill. On the other hand, the brighter the red light, the farther you went from the actual burn healer. But fret not, at least your pill can be used to satisfy hunger. Hearing the humorous joke that sounded in the air above the open ground, the spectators laughed from the spectators' stand. Everyone, begin, Hendrix said as the alchemists prepared to test the pills they concocted. As he caressed the round pill with his fingers, Noah calmly stared at the hole in the table. He did not hurriedly throw the pill in. Instead, his gaze swept around him. At this moment, some alchemists had already begun throwing their medicinal pills into the testing machine. Not long after that happened, the arena suddenly became very colorful. Strong and weak green and red lights interweaved as they glittered. Each brought either joy or gloominess to the alchemists' faces. If anyone should, it's Lord Hendrix. Since he's the best among us, Gabriel calmly said without showing his hatred for Ghost. Everyone who knew Gabriel knew he would hate anyone who stole his spotlight. Considering Ghost dethroned him as the #1 alchemist in Elon and Azair, naturally Gabriel loathed Michael to the core. They knew how Gabriel would think even if Gabriel didn't show it openly. I have to disagree with you, Lord Gabriel. He has reached a height I never could at his age. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses all of us and becomes the #1 alchemist in the world. Hendrix turned his gaze from the participants to Gabriel. It's settled then. Ghost, please give them a demonstration. Alred gestured at Michael to go to the ground level so the participants could see Michael in action. Everyone, Hendrix clapped as the entire arena became silent once again. Before we move on to the second round, let one of the judges demonstrate how to concoct the blood healer pill using the same ingredients as you. Michael slowly stood up from his seat as the crowd immediately became excited. This is so exciting. Yee. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. I can't wait. How long will it take him to make the pill? The crowd began to chitter-chatter while the participants looked up to see Michael descending from the VIP seats to the ground. Please, use my table, Jennifer quickly said before even Michael's feet could touch the ground. Under thousands of gazes, Michael strolled to Jennifer's table, where he saw a batch of ingredients lying on the table. At the moment, Michael was everyone's center of attention. From the VIP seatings, Eve stood up from her seat and came to the edge to see Michael in action. Look closer. I will try to concoct the pill slowly. Michael enhanced his voice through arch energy. Thus, his voice sounded loud and clear throughout the arena. Miss Jennifer, may I? Instead of conjuring his alchemy flames and directly extracting the essence from the ingredients, as usual, Michael asked for Jennifer's cauldron. Lord Hendrix? Michael looked up at Hendrix as he clapped his hands to turn the ghostly hourglass upside down. Ding! The hourglass began to rain sand down with a loud band. With a calm face, Michael conjured his alchemy flames. The emerald green flames disappointed many as they expected Ghost to possess a different color flame. However, Hendrix's calm eyes perplexed, sensing weird energy from the flames surrounding Jennifer's crimson-red cauldron. Other than Hendrix, none sensed anything different about Michael's flames. Under their gazes, Michael controlled the fire in one hand while picking up the first ingredient in the other. However, before any green mist could appear from the cauldron like when the others refined the ingredient, Michael put another ingredient into the cauldron. Whoa, he's extracting the essence from the ingredients at the same time. Adovan gasped as Michael put all the ingredients into the cauldron instead of one by one. In a few blinks of an eye, colorful beads emerged from the cauldron and hovered above the cauldron. Many gasped in shock, and even Leylon and Noah couldn't help being stunned by his skills. Michael made it look simple, but as an alchemist, they both knew how hard it is to extract essence from all the ingredients at the same time. Wow! Jennifer stared at his every single move without blinking an eye. Her jaw dropped a couple of inches, just like the rest. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1,200 badass points. The badass points rapidly increased as the notification sound continued to ring in his head. At the moment, they looked closer at the beads, wondering whether he would merge them one by one or merge them all like Noah. To everyone's surprise, Michael moved his palms closer and closer as the beads began to merge with each other. Noah's method was difficult, but not for Michael. It only took him less than a minute to merge all the beads into an orb of essence. Noah saw no signs of struggle on Ghost's face. The next moment, the emerald green flames appeared once again, surrounding the orb of essence. The flame swirled around the orb for a few seconds before disappearing out of existence. When the fire disappeared, a glowing purple pill hovered in the air, radiating a sweet fragrance. Since Leylon, Noah, and Jennifer stood closer to Ghost, they could smell the fragrance coming from the pill. Under 2 minutes, Aishan gasped after he saw the hourglass. Then, just like him, countless sounds of people gasping reverberated in the arena. They were all stunned beyond words. While his speed stupefied them, Michael flicked his wrist as the pill went straight into the hole in Jennifer's table. Then, unlike never before, the table began to tremble, producing a whistling sound. Boom! Then, a muffled burst sounded from the table as a bright streak of green light shot towards the sky. The streak of light turned everyone and everything green with its brightness. It was several times brighter and denser than Noah's streak of light. That's how you make a burn healer in 70 seconds, Michael calmly said, shocking everyone in the arena. Unless one has total control over their alchemy fire, the ingredient would be burnt to ashes before they could extract the essence, Michael explained to Eve. On the ground level, Noah raised his head, looking around him only to find that Jennifer, Leylon, and the others had their eyebrows slightly knit together. Clearly, they were very inexperienced. Else, they wouldn't be thinking it's simple to brew the revitalization potion. Good thing I have practiced controlling heaven's flame, Noah mumbled softly. We shall now begin the second round. You have an hour, as Hendrix's voice echoed through the arena. The ghostly hourglass materialized again in the air. After setting down on his seat, Hendrix looked at Noah, who had already raised his flame and began to refine the ingredients one by one. Speed and control, young man, he muttered under his breath. Many alchemists were grinning as they thought the formula was simple. Moreover, they had 1 hour to brew one potion. It was a simple enough task in their minds. Hence, they conjured the flames with bright smiles. Of course, among so many alchemists, there were some cautious ones who were surprised upon looking at the simple test and hesitated. But they just shoved the doubt and hesitation to the corner of their minds and began to refine the ingredients. With absolute focus, Noah conjured his bright blue flame. It took the cauldron a few more minutes to reach sufficient temperature. Afterward, Noah slowly began to throw in the medicinal ingredients one by one. His pupils constricted as he slowly began to refine. Are you participating in the aqua auction, Eve? While everyone was busy refining the ingredients, Michael asked Eve. Since they were friends, they naturally addressed each other by their first names. Yes, I reckon you're coming too. I will issue an arrest warrant if you don't come to Voldegard Mansion in Thera. She squinted her eyes as Michael smiled. Definitely. Here, take this. With a flick of her delicate wrist, Eve took out a silver medallion in the shape of V. We can go to the auction together. Voldegards have our own place in the Aqua Palace. Michael put the medallion in the system storage with a nod. Meanwhile, as they were refining the ingredients, the noise from the 2 seating galleries at the sides also gradually decreased. Numerous gazes swept over the alchemists in the open square, looking at them without batting an eye. As time slowly flew, many red lights flicked in the arena. Michael saw many alchemists had burnt all their ingredients while trying to extract the essence. But, like Michael told Eve, one needed absolute control over their fire and focus. Those who lacked either naturally got eliminated from the competition. On the other hand, some of the competitors whose abilities were quite good had already refined the ingredients needed. After hesitating for a moment, they clenched their teeth and tried to merge the essence, beginning the final part of the refinement. "Try merging them one by one," Noah said in a low-pitched voice, only loud enough for Jennifer and Leylon to hear. Noah broke sweat on his forehead and merged the last bead in the row with the bead beside. Hearing Noah's tip, Jennifer and Leylon conjured their flames again to refine the ingredients. Michael, who sat leisurely on the VIP seat, got bored of seeing the youngsters failing so miserably. Thus, he focused on the spycam he placed on pirate Captain Corey. Currently, he could see her navigating through a treacherous storm, and in the distance, Michael noticed a vague outline of another ship. Sabrina. It was clear to Michael that Corey was chasing Sabrina's ship. Apparently, she had something that the vampires needed. Until they get what they want, Michael knew they wouldn't let Sabrina go. The judges and spectators observed the alchemists without batting an eye. But, because of Noah's focus and experience, he was the first one to merge the beads. As soon as all the beads merged into an orb, the orb of essence radiated a sweet fragrance along with a bright glow. "Shit, he's about to finish." As Leylon sniffed the faint fragrance emanating from the essence orb, he growled inside. At this moment, countless people's hearts were hung in their throats. "He can finish it." Aishin's shriveled palm tightly held the guardrail. Unlike Michael, the rest were too focused and excited to see the alchemists in action. The silent atmosphere in the arena continued until Noah kicked the table, sending the vial into the air. With a flick of his wrist, Noah guided the essence into the vial and covered the vial with his heaven's flame. Only when all the essence went into the vial did Noah slowly exhale. He raised his head as a faint smile appeared on his calm face. Under the thousands of gazes, Noah remained with a dark red vial in his hand. Following Noah's success, almost 15 minutes later, the green light of Jennifer and Leylon was lit up. The two of them placed their potions on the table and exchanged glances, sighing in relief. After the trio, a few more streaks of green light shot out towards the sky from the arena. Unfortunately, the red streaks of light overwhelmed the green light. When the sand within the hourglass completely fell, only a little over 100 people still remained in the arena. The rest of the people had already been completely expelled during these 2 rounds. As Hendrix clapped his hands, Noah slowly raised his head. His gaze landed on Hendrix, who revealed a friendly smile at Noah. After they concluded the 2nd round, the next event was to once again test for the potions. Just like the first round, when everyone placed their potions into the hold, Noah's table produced a brighter streak of light, followed by Jennifer and Leylon. Once the test was completed, the sky had already gradually darkened. A crescent moon slowly appeared at the edge of the sky, bathing the city of Oxshore beneath. Looking at the daylight slowly fading away, Aishin stepped forward from his seat. "Everyone, we will stop the competition for the day and start the final round at 10 tomorrow morning. Everyone, please take a rest and arrive here 30 minutes before." With Aishin's announcement, the long day of competition finally came to an end. Everyone in the VIP seating planned to take a rest just like the participants except Michael. He had something important to do, like contacting the Alpha Guardian. Chapter 503, The Assassination Plan, is in motion. Don't forget to check out HSS. Soon Michael will have a crossover chapters with each MC of my novels ****. Where are you staying? When Michael was about to stand up from his seat, Eve asked, "I assume the guild booked a place for us. Forgive these old bones for forgetting. Here, the key to your accommodation. You will be escorted by our guards when we reach outside." Aishin flicked his wrist, taking out a golden card from his space ring that had the words "Green Leaves" embossed in beautiful calligraphy. "Wonderful." Michael responded with a smile as Even also stood to follow Aishin and the other judges. Instead of leaving, Edith flew to the ground level to meet Noah. Michael noticed Edith but didn't mind her. The last thing he needed was to meddle in Noah's harem. As the judges walked out of the door and stepped into the hall behind the VIP seatings lit brightly with a giant chandelier, they were welcomed by the armed guards of the Aqua Clan. In addition to the Aqua Clan, the guards wearing blue robes stood in a neat line waiting for Eve and Jennifer. Lady Eve. The guards quickly bowed when they saw Eve. There was a hint of shock within their eyes, because they had never seen Eve walk so closer to a guy before. Now I have to find my friend, Michael said. Who? Teacher. Just as Michael was about to answer Eve, Olivia entered the hall from the other side escorted by a couple of armed guards of the Aqua Clan. The Aqua Clan guards didn't let her approach the judges, so she kept waving her hand at Michael. Let her in? Michael signaled to the guards. As soon as the guards stepped away from Olivia's path, she came running toward Michael. Then when she saw Hendrix, she was flustered. Lord Hendrix Gardner. I am a big admirer of yours, she stuttered. Kneading her hands, looking at Olivia, Hendrix warmly smiled. I am glad, young lady. So you're learning from Ghost? Olivia bobbed her head up and down. Yes. You are a fortunate young lady to have a teacher like him. With a nod and a pat on Olivia's shoulder, Hendrix walked away from them with Aishan, Alred, and Gabriel before Olivia could talk to the others. At the moment, only 5 Aqua Clan guards, Eve, Olivia, Ghost, and Eve's guards remained in the hall. Lady Eve, turning her gaze away from Hendrix and the other grandmasters, Olivia slightly bent her waist. Lady Eve. Olivia greeted Eve with a respectful tone. Eve, Olivia. Michael simply pointed at Olivia. Pleasure to meet you, Olivia. Eve surprised the guards yet again by extending her hand toward Olivia. Pleasure is all mine, Lady Eve. Olivia shook her hand. Please, call me Eve. Eve gently smiled and said, I think we should leave. I have to find accommodation for you. What? The alchemists will be here shortly? Tanulia kept brushing Tiriana's head like a mother. Lots of work, vampires. Tiriana blurted out a few words, fighting through the pain. Sure, we are taking care of it, Tanulia said with a smile to calm Tiriana down. Unfortunately, the outside situation wasn't good at all. The existence of vampires and the news spread across the continent that Guardians tried to hide vampires' existence brought a storm down on the guild. Currently, they were facing pressure from every direction. Her team was still investigating who leaked the information about the vampires to the royal news. She suspected Peyton, but she had no proof to back her doubts. As far as Tanulia could tell, Peyton worshipped the guild and stood to gain nothing by abolishing the guild's reputation. Creech. Suddenly, Tanulia heard something from behind. She turned back with lightning-quick speed to see a piece of paper on the ground beneath a stool. She stood up from the bed, walked to the paper, and picked it up. Her brows furrowed when her gaze swept across the piece of yellow paper. Then, she put the piece of paper back on the stool and opened the wooden door nearby to leave the room. Sponsored content. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. As soon as she stepped out of the room, she made her way to hall, where she saw several guardians and a girl sitting behind a crescent-shaped marble table. Did I receive any packages today? Tanulia asked the silver-haired elf. Yes, Alpha Guardian. We sent the package to the Runemasters and waiting for them to finish checking it. Bring me the package now. Tanulia slightly raised her voice as the girl shuddered. Yes, Alpha Guardian. The girl didn't dare to remind the Alpha Guardian of the protocols. Instead, she just bobbed her head, opened the door behind her, and disappeared to bring the package to Tanulia. Several minutes later, the girl returned carrying a wooden box. Everyone leave. Tanulia's voice reverberated in the hall, attracting the Guardians' attention. They gawked at each other and the stoic face of Tanulia for a moment before leaving the hall. After they left the hall, Tanulia slowly opened the box to see a parchment and a vial with sparkling silver liquid on crimson-red cloth. Tanulia picked up the parchment. For a few moments, she scanned the parchment and the box with her senses until she found no threats. Only then did she open the parchment. Greetings, Alpha Guardian. We remained in darkness, harming no one. But you and your guardians decided to expose us to the light. You shouldn't have done that. Because of you, your best friend is now suffering. Suppose you don't personally come to apologize to us alone at the location marked down below. In that case, your friend will experience the most excruciating death the elves have ever seen. The vial contains something that will lessen her pain. Consider this a courtesy of our great nation of nightwalkers aka vampires, as you named us. Your friend has 2 days to live, so your clock is ticking, Alpha Guardian. Tenulia's body trembled as she read the parchment. RRRRRGHHHH. Just as she finished reading the letter, Tiriana's scream echoed through the warship. Immediately, Tenulia hurried to the room, and when she reached the room, she saw Tiriana puking blood, rolling on the floor while screaming in agony. Subconsciously, Tenulia picked up the potion before leaving the hall. Tiri. Tenulia dashed at Tiriana. RG. Tiriana kept screaming in agony when Tenulia sat beside her and put her head on her lap. Without Tenulia's control, her eyes watered. Tanu! Tiriana screamed as blood gushed out of her nostrils, eyes, and ears. At that moment, many guardians who heard Tiriana's scream flocked into the room. Alpha Guardian. Among those who entered the room were the healers who had previously left the room. They quickly rushed to her side and knelt beside Tiriana. The blonde healer quickly retrieved a sparkling blue potion from his space ring and forced it down Tiriana's throat. Since it was the healing potion brewed by Ghost, Tenulia allowed the healer to give the potion. It was the only thing that lessened Tiriana's pain. However, unlike before, Tiriana didn't stop screaming. Ever after the blonde elf chugged an entire bottle of healing potion down her throat, they couldn't stop Tiriana from screaming, It's not working. The healer stuttered as Tenulia saw Tiriana's eyes closing. The healer immediately placed his hand on Tiriana's throat only to sense her pulses slowing down. Alpha Guardian, her pulse. It's dropping. When Tenulia heard his words, her heart skipped a beat. She held Tiriana tightly. She is dying, Alpha Guardian, the healer gravely said. All the guardians broke into a sweat while Tenulia's muscles went rigid. She couldn't even move a muscle because of the overwhelming grief. Finally, tears broke out of her eyes and rolled out on her rosy cheeks. The potion. Tenulia remembered the potion in her hand. Alpha Guardian, if we don't find a cure to whatever is happening to her, she will die within a few minutes. We don't have enough time. The healer swallowed his fear and explained the situation to Tenulia. Tiri. Tenulia's hand shivered, bringing the potion to Tiriana's mouth. As an Alpha Guardian, she was trained to make quick decisions because a second delay would cost lives in her position. Hence, she decided to give the potion she received rather than gambling with Tiriana's life. However, if she didn't give the potion, it was inevitable that Tiriana would die. Alpha Guardian, what is that? The healer asked Tenulia. Instead of answering him, she just opened the vial and gently poured the liquid into her mouth. Surprisingly, the moment the potion touched Tyreria's tongue, the healer noticed her pulse speed up. Alpha Guardian, her pulse is improving. Tenulia heaved a sigh of relief as she emptied the potion into Tiriana's mouth. He turned his head around to see Jennifer and Leylon calmly looking around the crowd. The latter, however, had a cold smile on his face. This is my moment, Leylon snickered. He had been training for the competition for a long time. For him, failure wasn't an option. No matter what, he had to make his teacher proud. Clap. The thunderous clap echoed through the arena, instantaneously canceling all the noise. When the arena became silent, Hendrix began to explain about the final round. Unlike the previous 2 rounds, we won't provide you with any ingredient or formula. In other words, you must successfully brew a potion or concoct a pill of your choice to the best of your ability in under an hour. The alchemist who refined the pill or potion with high purity and gets the most votes from the judges will be crowned as the winner. Sponsored content, visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. When the competitors in the arena heard Hendrix's clear voice, many felt excited, except for some who did not prepare any suitable formulas or had sufficient ingredients. If they failed, they only had to blame themselves for being careless and not prepared. As Noah's gaze swept all around him, he noticed Leyland's bright face. The latter was grinning, while Jennifer remained with her head held high as though she had absolute confidence in her formula and ability to refine something with a high purity level and miraculous effect. In the VIP seatings, Michael frowned slightly. To him, the round seemed yet again unfair. Among the competitors, some were 2-star alchemists and some were 3-star alchemists. Surprisingly, there were no 4-star alchemists among them, as the few who competed were eliminated yesterday. So naturally, 3-star alchemists could refine a pill or a potion with a higher purity level than the 2-star alchemists. The ability to refine purer products what made them 3 stars in the first place. Hence, when asked to brew a potion or concoct a pill, whatever the 3-star alchemist makes would have a higher purity rate than a pill or potion made by a 2-star alchemist. In other words, the 2-star alchemists stood no chance against the 3-star alchemists. Remember, purity isn't the sole determinant in the final. Whatever you make should impress the judges and get their votes. Keep that in mind. As though Hendrix had sensed Michael's thoughts, he reminded the competitors. His words gave some comfort and courage to the 2-star alchemists. Since everyone is already familiar with the examination rules, Hendrix slowly raised his hand and abruptly waved it down on the high platform. A faint sound reverberated throughout the entire place. The final round will now begin. Just like before, the ghostly giant hourglass materialized in the air as the competitors immediately took out everything they needed from their space ring. Chapter 505. The massacre has begun in the spacious arena. The gentle breeze brushed past the people, cradling them with its chillness. Michael observed the alchemist showing no expression on his blank as a slate face. The pungent smell of herbs and fire entered his nostrils, competing with the sweet fragrance coming from Eve. Today she looked gorgeous. It might be because Ghost became closer to her as a friend, which was why Michael looked at her in a different light. At first, Michael thought she was no different than a typical cold beauty such as Alicia. The more he talked to Eve, the warmer her character became. Michael felt that she would become a good friend to him. She was open, helpful, and understanding. Eve reminded Michael of a girl he used to play with in the orphanage. Coincidentally, her name was also Eve. So Michael knew deep down he treated Eve as his friend because of his childhood friend. Host. Michael cultivation level. Soul refining stage, level 2 experience points. 0/900, 000 badass points, 310, 000 skills and spells. Wind blast, LVL 6 responsive shield, LVL 8 environment scanning, LVL 6 ignitia, LVL 8 lightning dash, LVL 6 energy devover, LVL 2 soul eater, LVL 1 death range. LVL 3 Eyes of Darkness, normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others' Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions cloud of darkness, Lucifer. Weak. Willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques: Swords of Destiny 98% Mastery, Ring of Fire 92% Mastery, Serpent Maga 97% Mastery, Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford status. Healthy goals: Control the world, rebuild the Order of Death, utility function. Banker, LVL 5, ratio, 1,000 gold coins, 40 badass points, runic teleportation, X-ray vision, also integrated with Eyes of Darkness. Wealth, 18 million gold, special trait, 5-star alchemist, 4-star. Inventor subordinates, Gaia warrior, loyalty level 100%, Raylene, 5-star chef, loyalty level 99%, Arya, assassin, loyalty level 86%, Heinberg, warrior, loyalty level 45%, Maxine, warrior, loyalty level 98%, Tiberius, warrior, loyalty level 55%. Sadie, loyalty level 50%. Ricky, loyalty level 98%. Titus, loyalty level 60%. Optimus, loyalty level 60%. The Silent Reaper crew pirates, loyalty level 90%. Base of operation. Sunrise Sect, the Abyssal, the Crypt Kingdom of Bradford Familiars. Nightmare, Forest. Dragon, Vidora, Three-Headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation. Wind, 10% Mastery. Fire, 10% Mastery. Lightning, 15% Mastery. Darkness, 20%. I should definitely upgrade my inventor trait. After getting blood samples and every other possible sample from Victor, Michael planned to build some nasty weapons against the vampires. As far as Michael learned about vampires, he needed special weapons. The rest of the world was unbelievably vulnerable to the vampires. Noah may have been somewhat astonished by the epic-class cauldrons Leylon and Jennifer had on the open ground. However, Andreas taught him the cauldron was merely an object, and an alchemist should not depend on the cauldron to refine a pill or potion. According to Andrews, an alchemist should be able to use the alchemy fire as a cauldron and refine pills and potions without a problem. Just like Ghost. Noah's white cauldron seemed somewhat shabby compared to Jennifer and Leylon. Unlike the rest, Noah was not too concerned about the cauldrons. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought for a moment. Then, he flicked his finger gently and a set of the ingredients needed to refine the Crimson Waves potion appeared on the stone table. The moment Michael saw the ingredients on Noah's table, Michael knew what he was going to brew. To be honest, the potion had all the wow factors to win the competition. Michael doubted anyone in the judging panel except Hendrix would know about the Crimson Waves potion. When an alchemist drank the potion, their alchemy fire would turn crimson red. Hence the name. The crimson red fire would burn hotter and easier to control than the default green flame, so that the alchemist could produce pills and potions with a 10 to 15% higher purity rate up to 70%. If an alchemist could refine pills and potions with 70% purity, the potion wouldn't provide any effects. Michael didn't use the potion because he did not need to. He was a 5-star alchemist right out of the bat. Immediately the spectators were thrown into chaos. Whoosh! Following the darknet, a strong gust of wind in the form of a wave brushed past the hundreds of alchemists, putting off their alchemy fire. Ghost! Terror clutched Eve's heart as she involuntarily squeezed Michael's hand. All the judges immediately stood up from their seats bewildered. Even Hendrix lost the calmness on his face. The sudden darkness along with the pungent blood stench in the air terrified them. Lady Eve! Michael turned back to see a guard of Eve walking towards Eve holding his throat. In the dim, gloomy light, they saw blood gushing through his fingers. HHH! Another scream quickly echoed through the arena. Thud! The guard collapsed to the ground while another ear-piercing scream of a girl entered their ears. When they looked in the scream's direction, they all saw a mist of red smoke among the spectators. Soon after, they saw several other bloody veils of mist appear all over the spectators' stand. At this moment, the screams were the only sound they heard. Guards! Alred shouted, but no one responded. Teacher! Ghost, look! Olivia stuttered, and when they looked at where she was pointing, they saw the guard who collapsed to the ground, moving. The guard laid down his face against the floor and slowly moved his limbs. His lips made sickening, crunching sounds as he finally stood up on his feet. Guard! Eve spoke in a muffled voice and frowned, looking at the blood oozing down from the wound on his neck. When Michael looked closer at the injury, he confirmed his suspicion and took a step back. H! When the guard leaped at Alred, Olivia screamed in shock. Jarrrrrj. The guard ripped off a huge chunk of meat from Alred's neck in a blink of an eye. The blood sprayed from Alred's neck to Aishan and Gabriel's faces. The warm blood brought Gabriel from his shock. Holy blast! Gabriel immediately reacted by sending a golden plasma beam at the guard. Pulch! The beam shot right through the guard's chest, forming a huge smoking hole in his chest. However, it didn't stop the guard from taking another bite at Alred, who was clenching his neck in agony. Holy blast! Gabriel sent another plasma beam vaporizing the guard's head. Meanwhile, the spectators were in chaos as they attempted to flee the arena but turned into a bloody mess one by one. Alred. Aishin came out of his shock. Everything happened so quickly that only Gabriel was able to react in time. But, unfortunately, even he was late, as the guard had already taken a huge chunk of Alred's throat with a single bite. Immediately a sparkling blue healing potion appeared in Aishin's hand. Lifting Alred's head, Aishin chugged the potion down his throat, but unfortunately, the wound on his throat didn't close up. Welcome to the party. Out of the blue, a voice drenched in an evil aura reverberated in the arena. The cold, high, clear voice sent shivers through everyone's spines. A few seconds after the voice emerged, a dark figure clouded in a red mist appeared in the air right above Noah, Jennifer, and Leyland's center stage. Gabriel raised his hand, sending the golden plasma blast at the cloud. To his shock, the plasma blast shattered into millions of golden dots when it clashed with the cloud. Lord Hendrix! Hearing Aishin's shout, Michael turned his head from Gabriel to Aishin and saw Hendrix floating towards the vampire. His old body was stiff as though he was paralyzed. He didn't even move a muscle. Does he have something to do with the ambush? Michael asked himself, looking at Gabriel, who was currently trying to get through the red smoke blocking the door. Despite the chaos and mayhem, Michael remained calm. On top of his training to stay calm despite the situation, the darkness soothed his mind and soul. He canceled out all the screams of the people and focused on how to escape the arena without revealing his full power. Furthermore, he hoped the vampire's aim was to massacre people and issue the world a warning. Rather than targeting anyone specifically, anyone such as the Dark Lord who orchestrated their destruction of secrecy. Jennifer. Eve tried to move forward, but Michael quickly grabbed her hand. Sponsored content. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Stay still. Don't give him a reason to attack you. Noah will protect her. Michael whispered coldly to Eve. The seriousness and authority in his voice rendered Eve speechless. She wanted to disagree, but she simply couldn't. Michael didn't know about Leyland, but he was certain Noah would protect Jennifer. Meanwhile, Alicia and Norvin leaped onto the ground, reaching Noah. Ghosty dragged Dash with his eyes turning red. Aishin raised his hand to cast a spell. Before he could finish casting, a puff of smoke shot out from the vampire like an arrow and blasted Aishin to the wall. In midair, the shroud enveloping the vampire slowly opened up, vaguely revealing a bloated short man. Through the opening, Michael saw the man opening his mouth as a meter-long tongue resembling a tentacle came out to lick Hendrix. Still, Hendrix didn't even move a muscle. Instead, he looked like a T-pose statue while being licked by the vampire. The tongue gradually coiled around Hendrix's neck, clenching Hendrix's throat little by little. Leave him alone. Suddenly, Noah's shot echoed through the arena. Then, everyone saw a bright beam of light shoot out of Noah's body to straight up at the vampire. The bright beam had a tint of blue as heaven's flame coiled around the beam. As per Michael's knowledge, the primordial flames were one of the weaknesses of a vampire. Ever since he used dark flames on Victor, Michael wondered whether the other primordial flames would have the same effect or not. His curiosity ended when Noah's flame cut straight through the bloody mist enveloping the vampire, cutting the tongue around Hendrix's neck. Immediately Alicia leaped into the air, catching Hendrix in her arms. Arg! The vampire cried, but it sounded more pissed off rather than hurt. When the vampire growled, all his underlings stopped killing the spectators and leaped onto the ground. Boys, kill them! The vampire coldly ordered the underlings. Michael had a feeling the vampire was looking at the VIP seatings. His feeling was confirmed when a few vampires leaped from the ground to their VIP seatings. Thank you, Noah! Michael cursed Noah in his mind. There was a possibility that the vampire was targeting only Hendrix and would have left the arena after killing Hendrix. By attacking the vampire with Heaven's Flame, Noah pissed it off. Now, the vampire ordered the underlings to kill them instead of killing the spectators. Granted, Michael felt terrible for the people who got killed by the vampires. Yet, his own survival was more important to him than the people. When two powerful forces were at war, people would die. As far as Michael was concerned, it was impossible to save everyone. Get them to safety! From the ground, Noah shouted at Alicia. And just as she was about to leap at the VIP seatings, Noah raised his hand, sending a stream of Heaven's Flame to Alicia's golden spear. Immediately, her spear lit with Heaven's Flame. Michael, who saw the spear burning with Heaven's Flame, cursed at the dark flames because if he had to cover his swords in dark flames, the flames would melt down the steel like a knob of butter. Seems like mine is more powerful than Heaven's Flame. He calmed himself down, comparing Heaven's Flame and the dark flames. Stay back! Michael stepped in front of Eve and Olivia as two vampires targeted him, while four others targeted Aishan and Gabriel. Like hell I would. Eve stepped forward and stood beside Michael as a hammer with a gold handle materialized in her hand. In the corner of his eyes, Michael saw several tiny runes glowing on the gray hammerhead. Eve kept spinning her hammer until the hammer became blurry. Whoa! Michael was stunned when she threw the hammer at the vampire and sent the vampire flying before hitting the vampire in the chest. Whoosh! She raised her hand as the hammer, which disappeared from their sight, came right back into her hand. Michael noticed the runes glowing brighter than before. Unfortunately, he missed the ability to summon back Doombringer after throwing it. At the moment, he had to upgrade the Doombringer if he wanted to place any runes. Seeing Eve summon the hammer back, he was slightly jealous, to be honest. Moreover, she looked so cool. However, Michael didn't plan to be on the sidelines. This was his scene, and Michael had enough of being sidelined. You're tuning in to the Legend of the Vagabond YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.